Ugh, it hurts. Lin Qin woke up amid a sharp pain. The back of his head throbbed fiercely, as if struck hard by a boulder. He instinctively lifted a hand to check for bleeding, only to find his arms completely immobile. Vine ropes dug into his flesh, pinning him spread eagle to a wooden stake. A clear female voice sounded nearby, and Lin Qin tilted his head toward the sound. Moonlight seeped through the cave entrance, the only source of pale illumination, outlining several slender figures. His blurred vision slowly cleared. Thud! A delicate-looking girl carried a 300-gene giant stag into the cave. She tossed the carcass roughly onto the ground. We're having a feast tonight. I've been tracking this stag for 2 whole days. She then skillfully skinned the creature with a bone knife, swiftly carving the meat into raw crimson chunks. A thick, metallic stench of blood flooded his nostrils, fully sobering his foggy mind. Cat ears and a tail? Real living ones. Jet black silky hair draped over her angular shoulders, paired with amber eyes. Her fluffy cat ears twitched now and then to shoo away insects. The cat-eared girl squatted less than a meter to his left, gnawing on raw meat. Traces of warm blood smudged at the corners of her mouth. A rabbit-eared girl sat beside her, also chewing raw flesh, while gripping a crude stone hammer stained with fresh blood. Lin Qin stared hard at the hammer. This was almost certainly what had bashed his skull. What is your name? Seeing Lin Qin regain consciousness, the cat-eared girl leaned in to question him. Her face was far too close, and the reek of blood on her breath made him gag slightly. Lin Qin, where do you come from? I was camping in the mountains outside Xinglong village. Why did you trespass into our territory? I ate some wild mushrooms during the trip. I wandered off to relieve myself and got lost afterward. The cat-eared girl stared at him for 3 full seconds, her amber pupils narrowing to thin slits in the dim cave. She then stood and called out, Ollie. A playful face peeked out from behind her. Fiery red hair framed a pair of fox ears, with naturally upturned eye corners that lent her a flirtatious gaze. His muscles are weak and underdeveloped, the fox-eared Ollie said as she stepped forward and squeezed his arm, wrinkling her nose. But he has a sturdy frame. He can perform physical labor for the tribe. What good is hard labor alone? A third voice drifted up from near his feet. Lin Qin lowered his gaze to meet a pair of long rabbit ears. The girl with chestnut hair tied into 2 messy buns squatted by his feet, tilting her head as she examined his footwear. He cannot contribute to our tribe's population growth, the rabbit girl said earnestly as she lifted her head. Rabbit, do not say such things. The cat-eared leader shot her a warning glance. I'm not lying. The rabbit girl stood with her hands planted firmly on her hips. Several foreign males were tested by the southern tribe last season, yet none succeeded in bearing offspring with our women. Lin Qin's mind raced frantically. Real beast women? An entire group of them. Had the wild mushrooms triggered vivid hallucinations? He had never heard of morel mushrooms being toxic enough for this. After a moment of stunned silence, he came to a stark realization. He had transmigrated to another world, and was the only male within this entire tribe. To make matters more daunting, every single one of these beast women possessed impressive physical prowess. Lin Qin quickly assessed the group with a calm, analytical mindset. Facial features, 8 to 10 out of 10 physical build, well above average clothing. Minimal primitive hide garments that only covered essential body areas. Instead of struggling recklessly while bound, Lin Qin used those tense moments to observe his surroundings and gather critical information. He completed 3 key observations. First, counting the population. At least 20 beast women occupied the cave, ranging from elderly matriarchs lined with wrinkles to young children aged 5 or 6. Only the 3 young females had dared approach his restrained form. Second, evaluating weaponry. The cat girl carried a bone knife, and the rabbit girl held a stone hammer. The rest of the tribe stood watching from a distance, armed with nothing but animal hides and half-finished vine cords. No lethal long-range weapons were present. Third, gauging their demeanor. The cat-eared woman was clearly the tribal chief. The fox-eared Ollie had an outgoing, cheerful temperament. The rabbit girl seemed simple-minded and naive. The other onlookers carried no obvious hostile intent toward him. His gaze swept across the watching crowd. An elderly cow-eared elder twisted new rope while keeping cloudy eyes fixed on him. A shy young dog-eared maiden hid behind a stone pillar, only half her face and drooping ears exposed as she timidly studied the outsider male. All the tribe members wore scant hide coverings suited for their primitive lifestyle. Still, admiring his surroundings was the last priority right now. Survival was his sole objective. Rather than passively await his fate, he resolved to take initiative. Lin Qin parted his lips to speak. He noticed the circle of beast women slowly closing in around him. A curvy deer-eared woman with a graceful figure spoke up. Laoshua, our tribe hasn't come across a single male in 7 years. Members of the wolf tribe will arrive soon for resource trades. If they discover we have a male captive, we will never be able to keep him safe. Laoshua was the cat-eared woman who had hauled back the stag and wielded the bone blade. She deliberated briefly before responding. Winter will arrive in less than 40 days. The wolf tribe controls abundant supplies. Trading this male for provisions will let our people get through the cold months in much better condition. Ollie flicked her fox ears anxiously. Word has it the wolf tribe guards an everlasting flame. We must bargain for that fire source. Besides, we only have 12 days left to prepare the land for sowing season. Without proper field preparation, our seeds will be useless no matter how many we stockpile. The rabbit girl had untied Lin Qin's shoelaces and failed to rethread them properly. She stood and nodded vigorously. Fire will give us a fighting chance against the bitter winter cold. Every beast woman voiced their agreement. The tribe lived in constant fear of harsh winters, plagued by shortages of food and warmth. They survived solely on cold-dried meat with no fire for heating or cooking. Many tribesfolk had perished during the previous brutal winter. Lin Qin immediately pinpointed their greatest vulnerabilities: no fire, scarce food supplies, and crippling fear of freezing winters. It has been 7 long years since our last male appeared. I was too young back then, but I refused to miss this chance to bear children for the tribe. The naive rabbit girl was the first to step forward with eager determination. I will line up right behind you. Ollie smiled coquettishly and positioned herself behind the rabbit girl. Lin Qin stared at the impromptu queue in utter bewilderment. This was nothing like the human trafficking scams he had heard stories about back home. They planned to use him for breeding purposes before trading him away to another tribe in mere days. The prospect filled him with dread. He would end up treated no better than livestock. He had to find a way to stay alive. Everyone, this male is an extremely rare find. All of us will get a turn. Laoshua lifted Lin Qin's chin with her palm and studied his features closely. He is not unattractive, by any means. The rabbit girl leaned forward for a closer look and smiled at the tribal chief. Laoshua, I am particular about personal comfort. May I move ahead of you in line? Very well. You are the one who captured him, rabbit. You go first, and I will follow after you. Lin Qin felt a surge of exasperation watching the eager, yet faintly bashful rabbit girl. It had been this seemingly harmless, cute girl who had struck his head with a stone hammer without hesitation. Even the elderly matriarch had joined the end of the growing queue, which now stretched outside the cave mouth. Hold on a second. Lin Qin called out urgently. The instant his voice faded, a brilliant white light exploded inside his mind. Ding. Tribal bond system successfully activated. Current tribe, Clear Spring Tribe, total population, 23 favorability stat panel unlocked. Hint. Earn favorability points by fulfilling the Beast Women's requests, improving tribal living standards, and fighting alongside tribe members. Every 30 favorability points converts into 1 freely assignable attribute point. Current attributes: stamina. 3 determines your physical carrying capacity and endurance during manual labor vitality. 4 governs overall bodily stamina and physical resilience wisdom. 5 dictates your intellectual ceiling, including craftsmanship, strategy, and practical knowledge. Reaching wisdom thresholds of 10/20/30 unlocks the technology tree. Lin Qin froze for a split second. A cheat ability had finally awakened. Drawing a deep breath, he faced the group of beast women with pricked, attentive ears. While observing the cave earlier, he had spotted an open patch of dark fertile soil beside a stream just outside the entrance. It was prime farmland capable of supporting robust crop growth with the agricultural knowledge he possessed from his old world. His modern survival know-how could very well turn the tide in this primitive land. Raising his head, he spoke in a calm, steady tone. I have a method to help all of you survive the upcoming harsh winter. A heavy silence fell over the crowd. The rabbit girl tilted her head and voiced her doubt first. You are just boasting. You cannot even lift a stone hammer. Ollie dropped her playful grin and eyed him suspiciously. Words are cheap. What exactly do you plan to do, and what materials will you use? Laoshua said nothing, yet her fingers tightened visibly around the hilt of her bone knife. Lin Qin knew empty promises would never win their trust. He needed to produce tangible proof immediately. Every word he spoke was a gamble with his life. Success meant survival. Failure meant a second blow to the skull long before the wolf tribe arrived. I need 1 night, Lin Qin stated firmly. I will produce fire for you before sunrise. Fire. The rabbit girl blinked her large round eyes. You mean the flame that lights dark spaces, wards off cold, and cooks our meat? Precisely. Luoxue remained silent for several heartbeats before nodding her consent. We will let you try. Do not attempt to flee. The forest's after-dark teem with wild predators. A frail outsider male like you would not last a single night out there. It was clear how desperately the tribe craved fire, and Lin Qin's gamble had paid off. Still, he voiced one critical demand. I have one more condition. Luoxue frowned, holding back her irritation. Speak your terms. No one may force me into any breeding arrangements. I cannot engage in such matters without mutual willingness and emotional connection. Please disband that queue immediately. I will not survive being subjected to such demands. The 23 beast women maintained their orderly line, which had already extended beyond the cave entrance. He had no intention of dying from exhaustion within days of arriving in this strange world through such an undignified fate. The women whispered among themselves after hearing his plea. The male from the pig-ear tribe perished from overexertion after constant forced breeding, I heard. He is such a fine-looking male. I would hate to waste the chance to interact with him. A graceful deer-eared woman with mature charm stepped forward to mediate. Let him first prove he can conjure fire. If he fails to deliver, all negotiations are void. I agree. Chingu speaks wisely. This deer-eared woman held prominent standing within the tribe, second only to Luoxue. Lin Qin's wrist bindings were loosened, though vines remained fastened around his ankles to restrict movement. The rabbit girl volunteered to keep watch over him, with Ollie tagging along beside her. Pale moonlight spilled over the black soil outside the cave, turning the ground into a dark velvety expanse. Lin Qin knelt down to gather supplies for building an Iroquois pump drill, a tool far more efficient than basic hand or bow drills for starting friction fires. He needed several simple components: a soft wooden slab to act as the drilling base, a straight, rigid wooden branch for the drill shaft, two small hard wooden pieces for the top pressing handle and bottom stabilizer, a length of cord. One final vital component was still missing: a flywheel. The flywheel was a solid round stone or thick wooden disc secured firmly to the middle of the drill shaft. Its weight and rotational inertia kept the shaft spinning consistently in one direction without alternating back and forth, the key advantage separating the pump drill from primitive hand drilling. What exactly are you searching for? The rabbit girl crouched beside him, her head tilted in curiosity. I am constructing a tool to start fire through wood friction. Can you not just drill the wood directly to create flame? Manual drilling consumes excessive physical strength and yields minimal results. Lin Qin answered her questions while collecting materials. Dry branches littered the surrounding area. He smoothed and flattened a piece of soft timber, using a rough stone to form the drill base. Then selected a straight, thick twig and sharpened its bottom tip into a rounded point for the drill shaft. Locating a suitable flywheel proved the most troublesome task. He sorted through multiple stones, discarding those with improper weight or uneven shapes that would wobble during rotation. After some searching, he found a palm-sized flat round timber with a smooth surface and ideal heft. This one will work. Ollie leaned in to observe the timber piece. What purpose does this chunk of wood serve? A flywheel. Lin Qin bored a neat hole through the center of the disc with a shard of bone, fixing it tightly onto the midpoint of the drill shaft and testing its stability with a light shake. It preserves rotational momentum to drastically boost the drill's spinning speed, making fire ignition far faster. The rabbit girl stared blankly. A wheel? I have never heard of such a thing. Simply watch and learn. Lin Qin asked, do you have hemp cord available? Ollie hurried back into the cave and returned with several lengths of rough cord. Will these suffice? Lin Qin tugged firmly on the cords to test their tensile strength. The coarse surface provided ample friction for his needs. They are perfect. He cut two short rigid wooden sticks to form the upper cross handle, tied each end of the cord to the handle's tips, then wrapped the middle section of the cord around the top of the drill shaft in a crossed loop. The full Iroquois pump drill was now fully assembled. The rabbit girl watched the finished contraption with unbridled curiosity. How do you operate this device? Lin Qin gripped the top horizontal handle and pressed down repeatedly in steady up and down motions. The wrapped cord tightened and slackened with each pump, spinning the drill shaft at high velocity. The weighted flywheel rotated alongside the shaft, its mass storing inertial force to maintain uninterrupted, fast rotation with a soft whirring hum. The rabbit girl's eyes lit up instantly. It spins incredibly fast. Stay quiet and keep your distance, Lin Qin warned, focusing on his task. 10 seconds passed, then 20. No visible change appeared where the drill contacted the wooden base. A full minute ticked by before a thin wisp of gray smoke curled upward from the carved groove on the slab. The rabbit girl froze mid-yawn, utterly stunned. Ollie moved closer, pupils blown wide in shock, her foxtail flicking upward in surprise. Smoke, it is actually smoking. Bathed in moonlight, Lin Xin caught glimpses of the two beastwomen's natural animal traits blending with their human forms, ears and tails being their only non-human features. Their minimal hide garments were functional for survival in the wilds. Both women leaned far too close to inspect the fire-making tool, their forward posture distracting Lin Xin from his task. His focus slipped for a moment, and the faint smoke faded away entirely. Do not lean in so close, and refrain from blowing air randomly. Lin Xin refocused his attention entirely on the drilling process. Sweat beaded across his forehead and his arms began to ache, yet his rhythmic pumping never faltered. 2 minutes in, the smoke thickened visibly. At the 3-minute mark, a tiny smoldering red spark ignited within the pile of fine wood shavings inside the groove. Lin Xin immediately halted his movements. He gently brushed the glowing embers and charred wood dust onto a bed of dry grass tinder he had prepared beforehand. He cupped his palms around the bundle to shield it as he blew air onto the smolder in slow, gentle breaths. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, whoosh. A bright flame flared to life abruptly. The rabbit girl dropped heavily onto the ground, her rabbit ears flattening backward against her head. Fire, real fire. Ollie twitched her foxtail, her tone laced with undisguised disbelief. It truly ignited? Was it really this simple to create? Lin Xin placed the burning tinder bundle onto the ground and fed thin, dry twigs into the small blaze. A stable campfire soon burned steadily, casting warm golden light to chase away the night chill. He turned toward the 2 stunned girls. Go fetch the rest of your tribe's folk. Moments later, all 20 beast women filed out from the cave and gathered in a tight circle around the fire, enveloped in total silence. The elderly cow-eared matriarch knelt first, stretching her gnarled hands toward the dancing flames. Her aged fingers trembled slightly as she absorbed the long-forgotten warmth. We have fire at last. We finally have fire. A young, timid dog-eared child hid behind the adults, peeking out at the flickering blaze with a mix of fear and wonder in her eyes. The rabbit girl sat beside the fire, staring into the flames for a long while before lifting her gaze toward Lin Xin, completely convinced of his ability. You did not lie to us after all. Ollie stood at the back of the crowd with her arms folded across her chest, the corners of her mouth lifting imperceptibly. Luoxue stood alone on the outermost edge of the group, moonlight gilding one side of her face, while firelight washed over the other half. She kept her distance from the bonfire, her gaze firmly fixed on Lin Xin. Wariness and scrutiny still lingered in her eyes, but what prevailed was a newfound appraisal born of a complete shift in opinion. Lin Xin paid no heed to the admiring murmurs surrounding him. Straightening up, he intended to gather more dry firewood to stoke the flames. Just then, Ollie's fox ears shot straight upward, her nostrils twitching faintly. Someone's out there, she hissed, her amber fox pupils narrowing sharply. Up on the hillside, I smell strangers who don't belong to our tribe. Lin Xin followed her line of sight, yet he could discern nothing amid the moonlit darkness. But Ollie boasted the sharpest sense of smell and hearing within the tribe. Her senses never deceived her. Without the slightest hesitation, Luoxue gripped her bone dagger and darted forth like an arrow loosed from a bow, racing straight toward the direction Ollie had indicated. Her movement was blisteringly fast, covering 7 meters in a single stride and vanishing into the night in the span of a breath. Every beast-eared woman in the tribe wore an uneasy expression. Who could be wandering around this late at night? Tutu whispered anxiously. Lin Xin frowned to himself. Could it be the people who had been camping alongside him? Roughly a dozen minutes passed before Luoxue returned. Burdock burrs and devil thorn needles dotted her leather skirt, her breathing slightly ragged, yet no blood stained the bone knife clutched tight in her hand. They got away before I could catch them, she said in a low, grim voice. But judging by their scent and footprints, they belonged to the fragrant grass tribe. Tutu slammed her palm against her thigh in exasperation. It's them again. They stole our dried beast meat the last time we laid it out to cure. Now they sneak over to spy on us in the dead of night. Ollie bit her lower lip. They must have spotted our fire. Isn't seeing our fire a good thing? Tutu tilted her head in confusion. Let them see that the Clear Spring tribe gets to eat roasted meat now. Ollie shot her a helpless glance, much like an elder regarding a naive youngster. Trouble will follow precisely because they've seen it. Luoxue sighed. They'll come to steal from us. Steal fire? Tutu asked blankly. They'll steal fire, steal meat, steal anything they can get their hands on. Ollie retorted with evident irritation. The fragrant grass tribe can barely hunt for their own food and dare not launch open raids. So they resort to sneaky thievery. Weren't our cured meats swiped right out from under us in the middle of the night not long ago? Luoshua spoke in her usual cool tone. Their numbers are small, with only a handful of capable fighters. They stand no chance against us in open combat, which is why they only dare to pilfer instead of fight head-on. Lin Qin listened silently without interjecting. Matters concerning the tribe were not for him to resolve. He chose to observe what plans the beast-eared women would devise for themselves. Tutu tightened her grip on her stone hammer. What do we do then? We can't let them rob our supplies once more. Ollie knitted her brows. Losing our fire source wouldn't be catastrophic anyway. Lin Qin can conjure flames with his bare hands. That still doesn't make it right. Tutu protested fiercely. We can't let them reap the rewards of our hard work for free. Luoshua refrained from jumping to an immediate conclusion and turned her gaze toward Lin Qin. Lin Qin met her stare, but said nothing. Pulling her eyes away, Luoshua said solemnly, we worked too hard to kindle this fire to let them take it without paying a price. Should we post guards to watch over the fire? Ollie suggested. We can hold them off tonight, but we cannot keep watch every single night, Luoshua replied. Now that they know we have fire, they will linger and scheme endlessly. Tutu stamped her feet anxiously. Are we supposed to put the fire out then? A heavy silence fell over the group. Ollie suddenly broke the quiet. What if we offer them a portion of the fire willingly? Tutu's eyes widened in disbelief. Why on earth would we do that? It wouldn't be a handout for nothing, Ollie explained. We trade fire for their goods. They've stockpiled hides and dried wild fruits, haven't we? We exchange fire for those resources. Luoshua withheld an immediate answer, weighing the pros and cons carefully. Lin Qin continued his quiet observation. These beast-eared women possessed vastly different personalities, yet none were foolish. Tutu was simple-minded but unwilling to accept unfair losses. Ollie was quick-witted and skilled at bargaining. Luoshua was level-headed and fit to make final decisions. I just can't stomach this unfair deal, Tutu muttered resentfully. Then what alternative do you have? Ollie challenged her. Tutu opened her mouth to respond, but found no rebuttal to offer. Luoshua glanced over at Lin Qin once more. What is your opinion on this? She asked. Lin Qin paused for 2 seconds before responding. This is your tribe's affair. I am newly arrived and unfamiliar with all conflicts between your people and the Fragrant Grass tribe, so the decision ought to rest with you. Luoshua studied his face for a moment, trying to discern whether he truly had no opinion or was simply avoiding taking a stance. Speak your mind, she ordered in an unyielding tone. After a moment's consideration, Lin Qin voiced his thoughts. If the Fragrant Grass tribe is truly weaker and afraid of open confrontation, they pose no real threat. We can trade fire for their supplies, and you hold full authority to set the terms of exchange. He paused briefly. Our greater concern is whether they crave more than just fire. Tutu looked confused. What else could they possibly want? Lin Qin did not elaborate. Luoshua pondered his words for several heartbeats, her expression darkening slightly. If they lay eyes on Lin Qin, we will face far graver trouble. Males are far scarcer than fire itself. Fire could be bargained away, but the man who could create fire out of thin air was irreplaceable. If the Fragrant Grass tribe discovered the Clear Spring tribe sheltered a male who wielded the power of flame, their greed would extend far beyond a simple source of fire. Ollie caught on instantly, lowering her voice. You mean, they might try to abduct him? Tutu's complexion paled instantly. They had barely welcomed him into the tribe, and now there was a risk of him being stolen away? We cannot confirm their intentions for certain, yet we must take precautions, Luoshua said after a long silence. Lin Qin kept his thoughts to himself. He had merely laid out a potential risk. The planning and execution of countermeasures fell to Luoshua and the other tribeswomen. Luoshua rose to her feet and swept her gaze across every person present. The fire will remain lit. Starting tonight, we will take turns standing guard at the cave entrance. Tutu, pick 2 tribeswomen to keep watch by the cave mouth. Ollie, slip over to the Fragrant Grass tribe's territory to scout out their movements when you have the chance. Lin Qin. She shot him a glance. Craft another fire drilling set tomorrow. We can keep our original fire source for ourselves, yet having a spare will give us leverage should negotiations with the Fragrant Grass tribe become necessary. Lin Qin nodded in agreement. Understood. He offered no further comments. At that very moment, Tutu's stomach emitted a loud gurgle. The sound was soft yet startlingly clear within the quiet cave. Tutu clapped a hand over her abdomen, her cheeks flushing bright red with embarrassment. A soft chuckle escaped Ollie. We've been rushing around all evening, and none of us have eaten a thing. Luoshua's gaze drifted toward the raw stag meat laid out nearby, still bloody and uncooked. The tribe had always eaten their meat raw in times past. But things were different now. They had fire. Luoxue turned toward Lin Qin. Do you know how to roast meat? Lin Qin blinked in surprise. I do, actually. I ran a small barbecue stall near my neighborhood right after I graduated. You will prepare the roast then. Tutu's eyes lit up immediately as she hurried closer. Really? You know how to barbecue meat? I can give it a try. The restraints binding Lin Qin were removed. He walked over to the bonfire, picked several evenly thick branches, stripped off their bark. Then he sliced the stag meat into uniform chunks with the bone dagger and threaded the meat onto the wooden spits. Tutu knelt beside him, tilting her head as she watched him carve the meat. Why cut it so thin? The meat will shrink up over the fire. Thinner cuts cook faster and turn out tender, Lin Qin replied. What does tender mean? Tutu asked innocently. Lin Qin spared her a quick glance and chose not to explain the concept. He propped the skewered meat atop stones flanking the bonfire and slowly rotated the wooden spits. Fat dripped from the meat onto the hot coals with a satisfying sizzle. Tutu swallowed hard at the inviting scent. Ollie moved closer, greedily drawing in the rich aroma. Even Luoxue, standing some distance away, found her gaze drifting toward the crackling flames involuntarily. While turning the spits, Lin Qin posed a question. Does the tribe have any seasonings? Ollie stared blankly. What are seasonings? Things that enhance the meat's flavor, such as salt or cumin powder. We have no salt. Tutu shook her head. And what even is cumin? Lin Qin fell silent. No salt, no spices, nothing at all to season the meat. These beast-eared women had survived on raw flesh for over a decade, completely unaware that food could be seasoned to taste better. What a harsh, difficult life they had endured. Never mind. Lin Qin forced a faint smile. Forget I asked. He continued rotating the meat skewers over the flames. With no seasonings available, he could only rely on precise heat control to bring out the best flavor. The fire seared the meat's outer layer into a golden brown crust, releasing a pure, primal meat fragrance that slowly permeated the cave air. Tutu stared fixedly at the roasting meat. Is it ready yet? Give it a little longer. 2 more minutes ticked by. The meat turned a deep golden shade, glistening with dripping fat, and the savory aroma intensified several times over. Lin Qin lifted one skewer, blew on it to cool the surface, and handed it to Tutu. Be careful, it's hot. Tutu accepted the skewer and took a bite. Her entire body stiffened on the spot. Ollie panicked. What's wrong? Does it taste terrible? Tutu said nothing and took another large mouthful before lifting her tear-pricked eyes to look at Lin Qin. This meat, it smells wonderful. It's absolutely delicious. Ollie snatched the skewer and bit into the meat herself, falling quiet the instant the flavor hit her tongue. Luoxue finally walked over to the fire. Without asking permission, she grabbed a skewer and took a bite. The other 3 watched her intently. Luoxue chewed the meat slowly with an impassive expression, then took a second bite. Growing impatient, Tutu pressed her. Well, how is it? Luoxue swallowed the mouthful and uttered 2 short words. Delicious. Though her facial features remained cold and reserved, her fluffy cat tail wagged uncontrollably behind her, betraying her true pleasure. Tutu let out a cheer and lunged for the remaining meat skewers. Lin Qin failed to stop her before she grabbed 3 skewers in one go. Watch the heat, he warned. Slow down. It's not hot at all. Tutu retorted cheerfully. Ollie laughed and darted forward to grab her own portion, prompting Tutu to dart around the cave, defending her roasted meat. The elderly cow-eared elder received a skewer as well. She cupped the meat gently in her gnarled hands, biting off tiny pieces to savor slowly, tears glistening within her cloudy-aged eyes. Fire, warm cooked meat, she murmured softly to herself. I'm far too old. I never imagined I would live long enough to taste cooked flesh in this lifetime. In a shadowed corner of the cave, a young dog-eared girl hid behind an adult tribeswoman, peering out timidly and swallowing repeatedly at the sight of the roasting meat. Lin Qin prepared several more skewers and deliberately set one aside to hand to the young girl. She hesitated for a moment before taking the skewer, nibbling a small bite. Her eyes instantly lit up with delight, and she retreated back into hiding to devour the roasted meat hungrily. Tutu wiped grease from her mouth as she sidled up next to Lin Qin, her tone pleading and earnest. Could you stay with our tribe? I don't want you to be traded away. Who will make roasted meat for us if you leave? Lin Qin met the earnest gaze of the rabbit-eared girl. She wore soft white leather garments, possessed graceful physical features, and lovely fluffy rabbit ears, with a soft tail peeking out faintly beneath her skirt. The girl was charming and amiable company. If the lump on the back of his head hadn't been her doing, he might have warmed to the idea of staying. As things stood now, he felt no inclination toward attachment whatsoever. Ollie wiped grease from her lips and shook her head with amusement. Weren't you the first one volunteering to claim him earlier? Tutu's face flushed with embarrassment. That's completely different. Luoxue crouched beside the bonfire, holding her half-eaten skewer of meat. She lifted her eyes to study Lin Qin, firelight reflecting brightly within her amber pupils. For the first time, a soft warmth had settled deep within her gaze. Half an hour later, every beast-eared woman in the tribe had gotten their fill of roasted meat. Lin Qin's own stomach rumbled with hunger as he bit into his portion of meat. Though cooked through, the lack of salt and spices left the meat tasting rather bland to him. To the tribe's women who had only ever eaten raw meat, however, the roast was an incomparable delicacy. A system notification materialized in his mind once again. Tutu favorability +5, Ollie favorability +3, Luoxue favorability +2. Middle-aged deer-eared tribeswoman favorability. Current total favorability points, 35. Total favorability has exceeded 30 points. You have been awarded 1 attribute point. Lin Qin opened his personal attribute panel. Stamina, 3 endurance. For wisdom, 5. He held 1 unassigned attribute point at his disposal. Should he invest the point into stamina or endurance? No matter how much he boosted his physical stats, he would never match the tribeswomen's natural physical prowess. Tutu wielded a 40-pound stone hammer with effortless ease, while Luoxue hauled a 300-pound stag carcass without breaking a sweat. Competing with them in physical strength was nothing short of foolish. His only tangible advantages lay in knowledge and modern skills the tribeswomen lacked, paired with his current wisdom stat. Lin Qin allocated the spare attribute point to wisdom. Wisdom, 5-6. He needed 4 more points to reach the threshold of 10 wisdom. A new system prompt surfaced in his consciousness. Upon reaching 10 wisdom points, you will unlock access to a technological skill tree, including pulley composite bows, foot-drawn crossbows, leather tanning techniques, curved share plows, and more. Pulley composite bows and foot-operated crossbows stood out most prominently to him. If the Fragrant Grass tribe acted on malicious intentions, such weapons would neutralize their threats effortlessly. Tutu's pretty face drew near as she interrupted his thoughts. Hey, what are you zoning out about? Nothing important, Lin Qin replied. After distributing the last batch of meat skewers, Lin Qin directed his gaze past the bonfire toward the shadowed slopes in the distance. They now had fire, and they now had cooked meat to eat. The elderly cow-eared elder leaned against the stone cave wall after finishing her meal, her cloudy eyes fixed on the dancing fire flames as she muttered quietly. Old tales tell that anyone who can conjure fire with bare hands is a shaman. A hush fell across the cave instantly. Tutu chewed her meat slowly and asked with a muffled voice, "A shaman? What is that?" "A being of immense power," the elder said, gesturing vaguely into the air. "One who communes with the gods, predicts celestial changes, and guides the tribe toward prosperity. My grandmother told me that powerful clans once had shamans long ago. Shamans needed no weapons or brute strength, yet every member of the tribe obeyed their guidance willingly." Ollie's fox ears twitched with curiosity. "Are you saying Lin Qin is a shaman?" "I never claimed such a thing," the elder shook her head. "I only state that someone capable of summoning flame bears the potential to be one." Tutu blinked her clear, bright eyes and circled Lin Qin, examining him from head to toe. "Lin Qin, are you truly a shaman?" Lin Qin parted his lips to respond, but was cut off by a young horse-eared tribeswoman speaking up. "That can't be right. Shamans ought to possess extraordinary power. He cannot even lift a simple stone hammer." Tutu argued fiercely in his defense. "Shamans don't need to fight battles. A shaman has no need for combat, yet he cannot become a burden to the tribe either," the horse-eared woman muttered skeptically. "Are we supposed to follow the words of an imposter pretending to be a shaman?" "He is no imposter," Tutu snapped angrily. "He gave us fire, and he taught us how to roast meat. Is that all he can do?" the horse-eared woman scoffed. "What will we do if the Fragrant Grass tribe attacks? Is he meant to burn our enemies away with his flames?" Lin Qin shot a calm glance at the arguing tribeswoman, whose favorability rating toward him sat at 0, a fact that did not surprise him in the slightest. Some people resented seeing others possess abilities they themselves lacked. It was far easier for them to begrudge another person's progress than to confront their own shortcomings. It seemed office-style jealousy and internal friction existed even within this remote primitive tribe. Jealousy truly warped people's perspectives anywhere you went. Checking the collective favorability scores, the majority of the beast-eared women held positive impressions of him. A tribal vote would undoubtedly recognize Lin Qin as their shaman. Tutu fumed helplessly and turned toward Ollie for support. Ollie did not rush to pick a side, offering only a measured remark. Creating fire is an impressive feat, yet the shamans spoken of by Elder Cow were capable of far more than merely producing flame. The elderly cow-eared elder nodded in agreement. A true shaman must be wise enough to lead the tribe out of hardship and secure lasting prosperity for everyone. Mastery over fire alone is insufficient to earn that title. She studied Lin Xin with neutral, impartial scrutiny, harboring no malice whatsoever. This young man does not strike me as bearing the mark of a shaman. Tutu stamped her feet anxiously. What will we do then? When the wolf tribe comes, will we hand him over in exchange for supplies? Remain calm. A steady voice cut through the tension from the opposite side of the bonfire. Chingu, the graceful deer-eared elder with the second highest authority in the tribe after Luoxua, set down her empty meat skewer and wiped grease from her lips. She rarely spoke up in discussions, yet her words always commanded Luoxua's full attention. Claiming the title of shaman cannot be done through words alone. Chingu addressed Luoxua directly. His true capabilities must speak for themselves. Luoxua fell silent for a short while before turning her gaze back to Lin Xin. Do you wish to become our tribe's shaman? Lin Xin froze for a split second. He held no belief in such spiritual titles, yet he held his tongue. He could see plainly that this debate was never truly about the ceremonial title of shaman. The tribe's women were weighing whether to keep him within their community and what practical value he could bring beyond reproduction. If being acknowledged as their shaman allowed him to shed his status as a tradable commodity and become an indispensable asset to the tribe, then he would accept the role willingly. I know nothing of what being a shaman entails, Lin Xin replied with calm sincerity. But if the tribe has tasks that require my skills, I am willing to attempt them. Ollie pressed for specifics. What tangible things are you able to accomplish for us? Lin Xin considered his current wisdom stat of 6, 4 points short of unlocking the full tech tree. He dared not mention pulley composite bows or foot crossbows outright. Such inventions would sound utterly inconceivable to these primitive tribesfolk, who would struggle to comprehend the terminology entirely. I can ensure you will never need to eat raw meat again. I can also help the tribe locate abundant food sources and find ways to stop our people from freezing to death through harsh winters. Lin Xin vowed confidently, locking eyes with Luoxua, the true ruling leader of the Clear Spring tribe. These changes will simply require time to implement. Tutu's eyes lit up with hope. You promise this is true? I give you my word, Lin Xin affirmed. Chingu spoke softly from the sidelines. His words hold merit. Empty promises mean nothing. We ought to grant him a chance to prove his worth. Luoxua finally nodded her consent. 3 days, she stated firmly. Produce tangible, meaningful progress within 3 days' time. What sort of work should I complete? Lin Xin asked. That choice is yours to make. Luoxua stood and flicked her cattail loosely. But if you deliver nothing of value after 3 days pass. She left the sentence unfinished. Yet every person present understood the unspoken consequence. The Clear Spring tribe could not afford to waste scarce food resources sheltering an outsider with unknown origins and no practical utility. Tutu watched Lin Xin with obvious nervousness, and Ollie's expression was clouded with quiet worry. Lin Xin said nothing aloud and opened his system interface once more. Total favorability from 23 beast-eared tribeswomen stood at 35 points, with his wisdom attribute fixed at 6. Even without access to the blueprint for composite bows, he could craft creations impressive enough to astound this small primitive tribe. 3 days was more than enough time. He drew in a deep breath. I accept your terms. Lin Xin had already begun mentally drafting the first creation he would build. Night had fallen, and the bonfire was slowly dying down. The beast-eared women dispersed in small groups, each heading for their own sleeping mats. Tutu leaned against the cave entrance with her stone hammer in her arms, assigned to take the first watch. Drowsiness was already weighing heavy on her eyelids. Ollie wrapped the leftover meat skewers in large leaves and hung them by the cave mouth to air dry. Before leaving, she shot Lin Xin a glance, words lingering on her tongue before she swallowed them back down. Luoxua double-checked the vines sealing the cave opening, secured Lin Xin's ankles with bindings, then walked to her own mat and lay down with her back toward the fading fire. Leaning against the stone wall, Lin Xin stared up at the cave ceiling amid the last embers of firelight. 3 days. He had 3 days to craft something tangible to prove his worth to the tribe. He cared nothing for being revered as a shaman, an atheist from the modern world. He paid no mind to such titles. What mattered was proving he could keep this tribe alive. Scouts from the Fragrant Grass tribe could strike at any moment. Members of the wolf tribe would arrive in a little over 10 days to trade supplies. As scarce male members of the tribe, he could be bartered for plenty of vital goods. The brutal winter, which even these beast-eared women struggled to survive, would arrive in less than 40 days. Every crisis weighed heavily on his mind, yet he could not afford to rush. Closing his eyes, he sorted out his plan step by step. He needed to create something convincing enough to win their trust by tomorrow. Surveying the tribe's armament, there was nothing but stone hammers and bone blades. No other weapons existed. Perhaps he could start by forging stone spears or bone spears first. After that, he would gather materials to build bows, sturdy hardwood, animal tendons, and bird feathers. Then there was that patch of dark fertile soil out beyond the cave. The ground needed tilling, and seeds had to be planted before the sowing window closed for good. There was far too much work to finish within 3 days. But he only needed to produce one groundbreaking item to silence all doubts. That would be more than enough. Current total favorability, 38. Tutu saved the choicest cut of meat for you after dinner on her own initiative. Favorability +2. Aunt Ching thinks your attitude is sincere enough. Favorability +1. Cumulative favorability, 38. Lin Xin glanced at the system panel once more before shutting his eyes again. Night wind carrying fine sand grains brushed against the cave stone walls, creating a soft rustling sound. At the cave entrance, Tutu yawned widely and mumbled half asleep. I'll bash anyone who dares come near. Her head drooped against the rock wall, and she slipped into slumber instantly. The fire dimmed further. The cave grew chilly after dark at the autumn equinox. Even curled up tight, Lin Xin shivered from the cold and unconsciously shifted toward a warm, furry figure beside him. He brushed against soft animal ears that carried a clean, gentle scent, alongside a fluffy short tail swaying faintly nearby. Lin Xin drifted into a dream where he sat fishing by a river. He was kneading bait for his hook. The pink bait felt soft and oddly wriggled on its own. There was no way an experienced angler like him would let bait get away. He reached out to grab it firmly. Ow! A soft, muffled whimper pulled Lin Xin out of his drowsy haze. By the faint dying firelight, he saw Tutu's face flushed bright red. His hand had landed squarely on the front of her leather garment. Tutu shoved him away at once, clutching her chest in shock, her rabbit ears twitching sharply. She shot him an indignant glare before darting away into the shadows. Lin Xin froze in place, staring down at his own palm. So the bait he'd been grabbing in his dream had never been bait at all. He shook his head and resolved to go back to sleep. Some distance away, Tutu lifted the collar of her leather tunic and peered at her skin underneath. A faint bruise had bloomed where his hand pressed down. Sniff, it's bruised. Dawn broke with pale gray light, and the cave bonfire had burned down to smoldering ashes. Lin Xin woke up shivering from the frigid air. He realized he had unconsciously dragged himself closer to the warm embers during the night. Tutu was no longer posted at the cave entrance. An older dog-eared woman had taken over watch duty, sitting with her knees drawn to her chest and nodding off repeatedly from exhaustion. Lin Xin stretched his stiff neck and glanced down at the vines bound around his ankles. They had been untied at some point overnight. His shoelaces had also been loosened. Among all the beast-eared women in the tribe, only Tutu was curious about his strange modern footwear. Luoshua walked over carrying leftover deer meat from the previous day and tossed a chunk toward him without ceremony. Eat. Raw meat. Lin Xin stared at the bloody flesh, nausea rising in his throat. He had eaten roasted meat the night before. Eating raw flesh now was unbearable. The embers haven't fully died out, Lin Xin said. I'll roast this first. Luoshua fixed him with a blank stare. Roast it yourself. Lin Xin moved beside the fire pit, added a few thin dry branches to the warm ashes, skewered the meat onto a twig, and held it over the embers to turn slowly. Fat dripped onto the hot cinders with a sizzle, and rich meat aroma quickly filled the air. The dog-eared guard by the cave twitched her nose, turned toward the scent, and crouched on the ground, her tail wagging rapidly back and forth. Luoshua remained expressionless, squatting nearby as her fluffy cat tail swept rhythmically across the dirt floor. Once the meat was fully cooked, Lin Xin blew on it to cool the surface and took a bite. Cooked meat tasted savory, yet lacked salt and any seasonings, making the flavor rather bland. Still, it was infinitely better than raw meat. He held out the remaining roasted meat skewer to Luoshua. She took it, flicked her cat ears, and bit into the meat slowly to savor the flavor. Speak your plan. Luoshua looked straight at Lin Xin. You only have 3 days. What do you intend to make? Lin Xin had formulated his plan long ago, ever since he had been tied to the wooden stake the previous evening. I'll start with weapons. What kind of weapons? Stone spears. Lin Qin nodded firmly. Stone spears are simple to craft. I can finish a batch by mid-morning today. Luoxua narrowed her eyes, clearly unimpressed by such a basic weapon. That is all. This is just the baseline piece to fulfill my initial promise, Lin Qin explained. Once the spears are done, I will work on something far more valuable. And what would that something be? You will see once it is finished. Luoxua stared at him for 2 heartbeats and chose not to press further. She called out loudly. Tutu. Ollie. Tutu walked into the cave from outside, heavy dark circles beneath her eyes. She had pulled watch duty halfway through the night, with barely any rest. She avoided meeting Lin Qin's gaze, still flustered from the awkward physical contact the night before. Ollie, by contrast, was wide awake with her fox ears standing straight upright as she trotted over quickly. Follow him. Luoxua gestured toward Lin Qin. Fetch whatever materials he requests and assist him. The order was framed as help, but its true purpose was surveillance. Males were an extremely scarce resource for the tribe, and males who could start and sustain fire were rarer still. Luoxua suspected Lin Qin possessed the knowledge to forge superior weaponry. Her gaze drifted from the outline beneath Lin Qin's sweatpants to a contraption tucked in the cave corner, the complex, unfamiliar fire starter he had brought with him. Luoxua thought, this male must have originated from a large, powerful tribe. Tutu rubbed her sleepy eyes. What do we need to look for first? Straight wooden poles, about shoulder height with this thickness. Lin Qin tied his shoelaces securely and gestured out the required size. Tutu led him out of the cave with a blunt warning. Don't try to run off, all right? I might lose control of my strength and crack your skull open with my hammer. I won't run, Lin Qin replied. He glanced at the 40-pound stone hammer slung at Tutu's waist, then rubbed the painful bump swelling on the back of his head from past blows. It was plain how terrified the tribe was of him fleeing, and he was equally terrified of being struck down by Tutu's hammer. Ollie trailed behind them, chewing on leftover dried meat she had stashed in her arms as they walked. Morning sunlight spilled over the distant mountain ridges outside the cave mouth. Lin Qin drew in a deep breath. The damp dawn air carried the cool, earthy scent of dew-covered soil. Hurry up and find suitable branches. Tutu darted into a stand of dead trees, rummaging through fallen wood. How about this one? This one? This is bent too much. Lin Qin walked over to inspect each branch one by one. The dead grove was littered with timber, yet most branches were too thin, brittle, or warped. He needed sturdy, flexible wood for spear shafts that would not snap under impact. After searching for more than 10 minutes, he picked out 3 relatively decent logs, one perfectly straight for the main spear shaft, with 2 others kept as backups. We need stones next. Lin Qin scanned the surroundings toward a distant pile of rubble. Thin obsidian or flint stones sharp enough to serve as spearheads. Ollie knelt beside the rubble heap to sort through stones. This area had once been a river channel during flood season, leaving countless stones scattered after the water receded. She picked through several pieces, but found none suitable. Growing impatient, Tutu tossed her stone hammer onto the ground and strained to heave a 200-pound stone slab, her face reddening from exertion. Lin Qin rushed over to stop her. We do not need anything nearly that large. You could have said that sooner. Tutu shoved the slab aside and gasped for breath. In the end, Ollie discovered a palm-sized piece of flint. Its edge was dull, yet harder than animal bone. Lin Qin tested the flint piece, grabbed a smaller stone, and chipped away at the rock to carve a sharp pointed tip. Tutu crouched beside him and watched his crude chipping method, tilting her head in confusion. If you work like this, you won't finish until nightfall. Would you like to try? Tutu picked up the stone hammer and lined it up with the flint shard. Ollie immediately snatched the stone away in alarm. One swing from you will shatter the flint completely. The 3 split up to fashion spearheads from individual flint pieces. Tutu wielded immense strength but lacked patience, growing irritable after a few strikes. Ollie had steady hands, yet insufficient force, though she made up for it with great perseverance. Lin Qin struck a balance between the 2, spending the longest time refining his spearhead. Nearly 3 hours passed before the spearheads took usable shape. They were unevenly shaped with jagged sharp edges, yet each had a functional piercing tip. Lin Qin split a narrow slit into the top of each wooden shaft, inserted the flint spearheads into the slits, then bound the joints tightly with plant fiber rope. Tutu picked up one finished stone spear and swung it through the air twice. It feels a little lightweight. This isn't made for you to use in combat. Lin Qin reclaimed the spear. It is meant to show the tribe what I can create. What difference does that make? Ollie smiled from the side. He said these are just for meeting the initial requirement. Together the 3 crafted 3 stone spears total. Tutu's brute force actually yielded the sharpest spearheads out of the group. Not to be outdone, Ollie selected a thin twig and made a lightweight short spear, calling it a spare weapon. Lin Xin stared at the 3 lopsided spears of varying thickness and flexibility and sighed inwardly. It did not matter. They were serviceable enough. They returned to the cave to find Luoxue sorting cured animal hides. She spotted Tutu carrying the 3 spears in her arms and walked over to pick one up. She hefted its weight, examined the binding around the spearhead, and swung the weapon a few times through the air. Is this all you managed to produce the entire morning? Luoxue looked toward Lin Xin with a skeptical expression. This is only the minimum guarantee, Lin Xin responded. I will craft something far more meaningful this afternoon. Luoxue handed the spears back to Tuesday, set them aside. They will see use if needed. Hugging the spears to her chest, Tutu muttered quietly to herself. I think they work perfectly fine. Ignoring her comment, Luoxue turned back to Lin Xin. What will you build this afternoon? Instead of answering immediately, Lin Xin posed a question of his own. Does the tribe have fully dried hardwood? Not dead fallen branches. Thick, seasoned timber cut from old trees. Luoxue thought for a moment and led him to a sunken hollow at the rear of the cave, where thick log sections split from ancient trees were stockpiled as raw material for tools. Lin Xin knelt down and sorted through the logs one by one. After 15 minutes of searching, he found a piece that fit his needs perfectly. It was roughly 1.5 meters long, 2 fingers thick, straight with no cracks, and possessed ideal natural elasticity. This one, Lin Xin said. Luoxue glanced at the log blankly. This was meant for firewood. I'm going to carve it into a bow. A bow. It is a weapon that fires arrows. Lin Xin gestured to demonstrate its function. It lets you strike enemies from a safe distance. You are capable of building such a thing? Luoxue's mouth fell open in undisguised surprise. I can attempt it. Success is not guaranteed. Lin Xin rummaged through the log pile once more to select a second blank as a backup bow stave, then carried both pieces of timber out to the main camp area. The afternoon sunlight was far harsher than the morning glow. Lin Xin settled on a flat stretch of ground near the cave entrance and began whittling the bow stave with a sharp flint shard. Tutu and Ollie squatted on either side of him to observe intently, resting their cheeks in their palms while their animal ears and tails swayed gently back and forth. Lin Xin forced his wandering focus back to his work, pushing distracting observations of their loose leather garments from his mind. What exactly are you making? Tutu could not contain her curiosity any longer. A bow. What even is a bow? Lin Xin declined to elaborate, channeling all his concentration into carving. Crafting a bow stave required precise shaping. Overly thick wood would be impossible to draw, while thin timber would snap under tension. The stave needed symmetrical tapering with a thicker central section to form a comfortable grip for the hand. He carved slowly and deliberately. The flint blade dulled rapidly with repeated scraping against wood grain, requiring heavy exertion for every cut. His wrists quickly grew sore and fatigued. Watching him struggle with the laborious carving work, Tutu reached out to take the blade. Let me do it. I have plenty of strength. Lin Xin pulled the flint away from her grasp. Your strength will split the wood with one wrong slice. Tutu pouted her lips in frustration, but did not try to seize the tool again. Ollie watched quietly and suddenly spoke up. Have you crafted one of these before? Lin Xin's carving motions faltered for a split second. I haven't, he replied truthfully. I have only watched others make them. It was not a lie. He had watched countless documentaries detailing the full process of constructing primitive bows and arrows in his past life. He understood the core principles, procedural steps, and critical precautions. This was simply his first time attempting the craft with his own hands. Human bodies were famously mismatched to learn knowledge. His mind understood every detail, yet his hands were clumsy, forcing him to learn through slow trial and error. Though the finished shape was imperfect and deviated from his ideal design, it was structurally functional. Once the rough bow profile was carved out, Lin Xin used finer flint fragments to sand and smooth the wood surface. This step removed sharp splinters and compacted the wood fibers for greater durability. The next task was fashioning the bowstring. The tribe had plant fiber rope on hand, yet it lacked sufficient tensile strength and would snap after a handful of pulls. Dried animal sinew was required instead. Do you have any preserved animal sinew? I'll fetch some right away. Ollie retrieved a length of dried deer leg sinew stored deep within the cave and handed it over to Lin Xin. He split the sinew into thin individual strands and twisted them tightly together into a unified cord, keeping constant tension during the twisting process to ensure even force distribution across every fiber. Tutu watched the tedious process with a confused expression. Aren't you just making a regular rope? This is a bowstring. Why not use the plant fiber rope we already have? It will break under tension. Tutu remained skeptical, but said nothing further. Lin Xin spent nearly 30 minutes twisting the sinew into a qualified bowstring, testing its elasticity by pulling firmly several times until satisfied with its performance. He carved small notches into both ends of the bow stave to seat the bowstring, then began stringing the bow, bracing one end of the stave against the ground. He propped his knee against the bow's midsection and pressed down hard to bend the wood into an arching curve, hooking each end of the sinew string into the carved notches one after another. The wood creaked faintly as its internal fibers stretched to their structural limit. Tutu shrank backward nervously. It isn't going to break, is it? Lin Xin was equally uncertain, yet he committed to the motion. With one final push, the bowstring locked securely into place. The wooden stave curved into a sleek, graceful arc with upturned tips and a thick central handhold. The top bowstring held firm, boasting a draw weight well over 60 pounds. Lin Xin stood upright, gripping the bow handle with his left hand and tugging back the string with his right. He managed to draw the string only halfway before his arm strength gave out entirely. The draw weight was far too heavy for his physique. He set the bow down with a blank expression. Tutu immediately held out her hands. Let me have a try. She took hold of the bow, inhaled deeply, and pulled the string all the way to full draw with effortless ease, no strain visible on her face whatsoever. When she released the string, a deep, resonant hum vibrated through the air as the bow rebounded. Ollie took her turn next. She could draw the bow further than Lin Xin, but with noticeably more effort than Tutu. Luoxue tested the bow last, drawing and releasing the string multiple times as the empty bow reverberated with low, thrumming vibrations. Lin Xin stared in quiet amazement. Drawing an unloaded bow to full draw was dangerous for modern archers, as the unspent kinetic force would rebound harshly into the wielder's arms. Yet the three beast-eared women showed zero signs of discomfort from the recoil. Their physical capabilities would easily outperform top-tier professional athletes in the modern world. How do we use this to attack targets? Luoxue asked. I still need to craft arrows to match the bow. Luoxue handed the bow back to Lin Xin with a firm instruction. I want finished arrows before sundown. Lin Xin nodded in agreement. Arrows were simpler to construct than the bow itself, though the process was not entirely straightforward. Lin Xin selected the straightest thin twigs from the deadwood grove, stripped away all bark, sanded the shafts smooth with flint shards, sharpened one into a point, and carved small nocks into the opposite tip to lock onto the bowstring. Bird feathers were bound to the rear of each arrow shaft to stabilize flight trajectory. Tutu watched him secure the feathers into place. Why do we need to attach these feathers? Arrows will veer wildly off course without them. What causes that to happen? Lin Xin framed a simple analogy she could easily comprehend. It is identical to throwing a stone. Uneven rotation sends the stone flying off target. Feathers stop the arrow from spinning erratically mid-flight. Tutu nodded slowly with a vague understanding. He crafted 4 arrows total, with sharpened bone fragments serving as arrowheads. Though the bone heads lacked overwhelming destructive power, a precise strike to vital organs would still prove lethal. Lin Xin picked up the bow, nocked an arrow, and aimed toward a dead tree 10 paces outside the cave entrance. He attempted to draw the bow once more, his hands trembling halfway through the pull, overcome by total muscular exhaustion. Chipping stone for spears, carving wood, and twisting sinew had worn his hands raw over the entire day, leaving him without the strength to draw the bow at all. Tutu grew anxious at his struggle. Let me shoot for you. Which tree are we aiming for? She snatched the bow from his grasp, knocked the arrow following Lin Xin's guidance, and drew the string to full draw on his marked target. That dead tree over there, Lin Xin pointed out. Tutu released the arrow. The projectile flew wide, embedding itself into the soil beside the tree trunk. It went crooked. Tutu pouted dejectedly. Try again. The second arrow also strayed off target. The third shot landed noticeably closer to the trunk. On the fourth attempt, the arrow buried itself into the dead tree's bark, wobbling faintly with residual vibration. Tutu froze for a moment before leaping into excitement, patting Lin Xin's shoulder forcefully in her joy. I hit it. Lin Xin, I actually hit the tree. Lin Xin winced sharply at the impact and rubbed his aching shoulder. Ollie stepped forward to pull the arrow free, discovering the bone arrowhead had detached from the wooden shaft upon impact. Luoxue walked over to inspect the embedded arrowhead in the tree bark, then glanced back at the bow clutched in Tutu's hands. Fire another round. 2-2 loosed volley after volley of arrows, her accuracy steadily improving with each shot. Her final arrow struck dead center into the tree trunk, the arrow shaft trembling from the force of the impact. Ollie jumped up and down in genuine applause. 2-2 tilted her chin upward proudly and turned to Lin Xin. Well, what do you think? Lin Xin looked at the drawn bow in her hands, then down at his own fatigued hands. He could not even draw the bow fully himself. Still, he felt no sense of discouragement. There was no shame in being outmatched by the beast-eared women's natural physical prowess. It was comparable to gym enthusiasts failing to match the raw stamina of seasoned construction laborers. Excellent work, Lin Xin praised her. We will build several more bows and train every tribeswoman in archery practice. If the fragrant grass tribe dares to raid us again, he paused for a beat, we will make them face the force of these arrows. 2-2 hugged the bow tightly, her eyes sparkling with resolve. Let them come. We'll shoot every last intruder down. Ollie shook her head with a soft smile, yet solemn determination settled across her features. Luoxue remained silent, fixated on the arrow stuck deep in the tree trunk for a long stretch of time. Her initial suspicion had been confirmed. Anyone capable of crafting such advanced weaponry had to originate from a large, sophisticated tribe. She then turned her gaze toward Lin Xin. You may recruit other tribeswomen to assist you in building 3 additional bows. Lin Xin nodded in relief at the prospect of sharing the workload. Understood. Current total favorability, 42. 2-2 sourced premium arrow-making materials and tested archery alongside you all day. Favorability +2. Ollie aided you by passing tools and carving arrow shafts. Favorability +1. Luoxue, and noticed the blisters covering your palms from hard labor and silently gave you a larger portion of roasted meat tonight. Favorability +1. Cumulative favorability, 42. Lin Xin closed the system interface and leaned back against the stone wall, watching the sky outside the cave darken with the onset of evening. 2-2 still fiddled with her new bow, unwilling to set it down. Ollie sat nearby carving fresh arrow shafts while humming a soft, nameless folk tune. Luoxue tended to roasting meat over the campfire, warm firelight softening her sharp facial features. The peaceful scene shattered abruptly with a panicked shout echoing across the camp. Members of the fragrant grass tribe, they're coming again. A sharp-nosed dog-eared tribeswoman caught the unfamiliar scent drifting on the wind and pointed urgently toward the distant mountain slope. Faint points of pale emerald light glowed conspicuously against the night sky on the distant hillside, coming from the reflective moonlight in the pupils of nocturnal creatures. Members of the fragrant grass tribe had returned, and there were more of them this time. Snow swept a cold glance toward the hills, bearing 2 sharp little fangs. She set down the chunk of meat she had been eating. She stood up and rested her hand on her bone knife. Rabbit immediately knocked an arrow to her drawn bow, aiming straight at the shadowy figures far off in the distance. Hold your fire, Lin Xin whispered. They are over 100 meters away. You will waste arrows with no chance of hitting them. And above all, do not let them spot the bow. He sat tucked deep within the shadows at the innermost edge of the campfire, his back pressed against the cave entrance. Snow had pushed him there earlier. As the tribe's leader, she understood full well the importance of hiding valuable assets. The existence of Lin Xin must never be discovered by rival tribes. Reluctantly, Rabbit lowered her bow. The outsiders halted halfway up the mountain slope, making no move to draw nearer. They simply crouched on the ground, observing the cave's glow, their glowing eyes blinking intermittently in the dark. They are testing us. Snow gritted her teeth, fury simmering in her gaze. They will retreat tonight, edge closer tomorrow evening, and blockade the cave mouth by the day after. What do we do then? Rabbit asked anxiously. We drive them back, plain and simple. Snow snatched the bow from Rabbit's hands, slid 3 arrows from the quiver, and strode swiftly toward the cave exit. Snow, do not act recklessly. Fox hissed urgently. The cat-eared girl sprinted forward with astonishing speed, each stride carrying her nearly 7 meters across the rough terrain. She closed the distance to roughly 30 meters before dropping to one knee behind a rocky outcrop and raising the bow before her body. The distant figures stirred in surprise, unprepared for Snow to charge forward entirely alone. Even so, 30 meters was deemed a safe gap, so they held their ground and watched cautiously. A single cat-eared warrior posed little tangible threat to their group. Snow drew in a deep breath and pulled back the bowstring, which creaked faintly under her immense strength. She locked her aim onto the clearest silhouette at the front of the group. Her powerful draw could send arrows flying well over 60 meters. A strike at this short range would carry devastating force. She released the arrow. A sharp whistling cut through the night air as the projectile streaked forward. A sharp cry echoed from the hillside, one figure staggering sharply before being steadied by their companions. Snow knocked a second arrow, her aim steady once more. "Leave this place. Never draw near the Clear Spring tribe again." Her voice was quiet yet crisp, carrying clearly to the intruder's ears. The figures dragged their wounded clansmen away and vanished swiftly into the darkness. Silence hung over the cave for 2 heartbeats. Then Rabbit jumped to her feet in triumph. "You hit them." Snow got a direct hit. Fox stood with a soft smile lighting up her face, her eyes bright with relief. The younger beast-eared women emerged from the cave's recesses, swarming around Snow with cheers and excited shouts. Snow's lips twitched upward despite her attempt to maintain a stern composure, the tips of her cat ears flushing pink with quiet embarrassment. "Did you see that?" One shot took one of them down. Rabbit pumped her small fist excitedly. The fragrant grass tribe ran off scared. They fled in retreat, someone corrected, sparking a wave of laughter through the group. An elderly cow-eared elder stepped slowly forward from the cave's inner depths. Her gait was unhurried yet firm, and the other tribeswomen automatically parted to make way for her. She stopped before Snow. She studied the bow in the girl's hands before turning her gaze to the pitch-black night beyond the cave mouth. "Let me see this weapon," she said, extending a weathered hand. Snow handed the bow over without hesitation. The elder's rough fingers traced the wood of the bow arm, plucking the string to produce a low, resonant hum. She fell silent for a long moment. "When I was young, I journeyed to the great northern tribes." Her voice rumbled, rough and slow. "They possessed weapons just like this. They allow hunters to strike foes from afar, safe from the claws of wild beasts and enemies alike. Those large tribes treasure these bows greatly, granting them only to their most skilled hunters." She lifted her cloudy eyes to scan every person gathered around the fire. "Snow, where did you obtain this?" Snow glanced toward Lin Chin, hidden in the shadows. "Lin Chin crafted it. Now our tribe wields this power too." The elder returned the bow to Snow and murmured softly, "Guard it well. This tool will spare many lives within our tribe." Lin Chin remained concealed in the shadowed corner beside the fire, witnessing the entire exchange. His fingers tapped gently against his knee as his mind raced through calculations. The arrow had struck its target, yet its bone tip lacked the lethality of sharpened stone. If he fashioned flint arrowheads fitted with barbs, even a stock of merely 10 flint arrows per warrior, the fragrant grass tribe would not merely flee on their next incursion, but pay with their lives. He unconsciously brushed the shards of flint tucked at his waist. Just then, a soft, melodic voice rang out from the back of the crowd. "Lin Chin." Lin Chin lifted his head. Deer-eared Chingu stepped out from the dim shadows. Warm firelight gilded her gentle features as her delicate ears twitched faintly. A mature, poised woman, she carried an indefinable warmth in her eyes. "You have created another extraordinary thing." Chingu swayed toward the campfire and knelt beside it. First controlled fire, now the bow. Even the shamans of the grand tribes could boast no greater feats. Lin Chin offered no reply. "I meant what I said before." Chingu met his gaze directly. "I nominate you to serve as the tribe shaman." Cheerful chatter in the cave faded instantly. The beast-eared women exchanged uneasy glances, and the elderly cow-eared elder frowned deeply, her ears flattening downward, a clear sign of wariness and disapproval. "There it is again," the elder muttered under her breath. "A male shaman? Such a thing has never been heard of." A younger tribeswoman chimed in with skepticism. "It is not that we doubt his worth." A dog-eared woman studied Lin Chin with a troubled expression. "But if the wolf tribe learns our shaman is a male, and such a physically frail male, unable even to draw a bow, they will view our people as weak prey. They might seize our shaman outright as plunder. Having one's shaman abducted by another tribe is the deepest shame a clan can endure," someone whispered nervously. Murmurs of uncertainty rippled through the assembly. No one spoke ill of Lin Chin himself, yet their words stung far worse than open criticism. To them, appointing a male as shaman was humiliating, and failing to defend him from capture would bring irreversible disgrace to Clear Spring tribe. Lin Chin stared down at his palms, where blisters from hard labor had split open, dried fluid forming thin crusts across his skin. His expression remained calm and unperturbed. He had anticipated this reaction. As a modern man with a physical stat of merely 3, he was perceived as inherently weak by these warrior women. Even though he had given them fire and built their bows, their ancient social norms dictated males existed solely for reproduction, unfit to hold leadership roles such as shaman. Chingu made no attempt to argue against the crowd's misgivings. She simply stood, flicking her tail beneath her leather skirt, and delivered a firm retort. Who brought us fire? Who forged our bows? Whoever keeps this tribe alive is worthy of being shaman, regardless of being male or female. With that statement, she departed into the shadows. The whispered complaints did not cease, though they softened noticeably in volume. Snow never uttered a single word throughout the debate. She sat beside the fire, resting the bow across her knees and carefully polishing its wooden surface with a scrap of animal hide. Rabbit crept over to Lin Qin's side and spoke in a quiet tone. Pay no mind to them. I think you would make a wonderful shaman. Lin Qin smiled faintly, saying nothing in response. Males were rare within this world, yet universally regarded as physically feeble. In the minds of these beast-eared women, males served no purpose beyond propagating the tribe, making them ineligible for the sacred position of shaman. Furthermore, the terrifying reputation of the wolf tribe was deeply entrenched in every clanswoman's mind. If the wolf tribe accepted females of other clans into their ranks, many within Clear Spring would have abandoned their home long ago to seek refuge with the stronger faction. I have not done nearly enough yet. Lin Qin opened his system panel, noting that fewer than 8 tribe members held positive favorability toward him, out of the clan's total population of 23 people. The perception of male inferiority was etched into their collective mindset. Worse still, most women quietly believed Lin Qin was only a temporary asset, destined to be traded away to the wolf tribe as valuable currency in exchange for vital supplies to survive the brutal winter months. The following morning, Lin Qin dragged himself upright from his bed of dry grass to find the cave largely empty. The beast-eared women had already left to bask in the morning sunlight outside. Slanted daylight streamed through the cave entrance onto the stone walls, with thin wispy smoke drifting upward from the cold embers of last night's fire. He stretched his limbs and automatically checked his system interface. Rabbit favorability, 8 fox favorability, 7 snow favorability, 5 Chingu favorability, 3. Rabbit remained the most favorably inclined toward him, her carefree, earnest nature making her the easiest to win over. You're awake, Lin Qin? Chingu walked over carrying a stone pot filled with fresh stream water, kneeling beside the fire pit to heat the water. Heating water? Lin Qin greeted her with a small smile. We once had no choice but to drink unboiled stream water, she replied, her deer ears twitching gently as she spoke. Now that we command fire, we can purify our drinking water through boiling. Snow and Rabbit left for the morning hunt and will return by midday, while Fox has snuck out to gather intelligence around the fragrant grass tribe's territory. Lin Qin nodded in understanding. With the 2 girls out on separate tasks, he had no partners for the day's work. Come with me today, Chingu said, as if reading his thoughts. We will gather wild berries. The weather grows colder by the day, and we must stockpile ample food before the deep winter settles in. Agreed. Lin Qin fell into step beside her. The trip would grant him a chance to map the surrounding terrain and brainstorm ways to improve their harsh, primitive way of life. Chingu led him along the banks of the stream. The waterway lay roughly 700 meters downhill from the cave, shallow yet crystal clear. She walked ahead along the narrow path, her graceful figure moving steadily forward. Lin Qin followed behind, observing her balanced, fluid posture with quiet admiration. A woman of around 30 years of age, Chingu carried a graceful maturity that the younger girls of the tribe had not yet developed. Her simple leather garments were practical for wilderness travel, fitting naturally against her frame without excess bulk. She paused periodically to pluck handfuls of wild berries and drop them into the leather sack slung over her back. These berries are safe to eat, she held one out to him. Lin Qin bit into the fruit. Its flavor was sweet with a sharp tart aftertaste, perfectly edible. His gaze drifted toward a calm eddy 30 meters upstream, where fallen leaves floated motionless on the still surface. Sunlight glinted beneath the water as a flash of silvery white scales broke the current for a split second. There are fish here? Lin Qin raised his brows. From the size of the flash, the fish was at least half a meter long, a substantial catch. The water holds plenty of large fish. Chingu did not look up from her berry picking, but they swim far too quickly to catch. Tribesfolk have spent entire afternoons attempting to spear them, never landing a single specimen. Lin Qin studied the water's surface intently, his mind devising simple fishing methods. Further along the stream, the water thinned to transparent shallows, and small creatures darted rapidly across the stony riverbed like speeding arrows. He squinted to make out their forms: river shrimp, roughly the size of a human thumb, with grayish translucent shells that camouflaged them seamlessly against the river stones. They reacted to movement with lightning speed, scattering into clouds of silt the moment a hand neared the water's surface. The shrimp are edible as well. Chingu knelt to peer into the shallows. They taste crisp and sweet when eaten raw, though we only occasionally find stranded ones during seasonal droughts. Lin Xin nodded, recognizing the raw flavor she described. Shrimp did not need to be chased manually. Woven trap baskets baited with scraps of meat could be submerged in the stream to catch them passively. The tribespeople failed to harvest fish and shrimp purely due to limited primitive technology and a lack of innovative thinking. They had never even realized vines could be woven into baskets and fishing cages. It was a waste to live beside such an abundant water source with no means to harvest its resources. Lin Xin was confident that with his guidance, Clear Spring Tribe could stockpile massive stores of fish to sustain them through the long, freezing winter. He marked the fishing spot in his memory and continued along the woodland trail. The stream path curved inward into a dense stand of short trees, sunlight filtering through the canopy to scatter dappled patches across the forest floor. Chingu suddenly froze mid-step, her deer ears standing straight upright and swiveling to pinpoint a sound. Animal tracks. She dropped low into a cautious defensive stance, advancing forward with slow, careful steps. Lin Xin followed her line of sight to see deep hoof prints pressed into the soft soil, the surrounding earth torn and churned up with exposed tree roots and snapped thick vines. The tracks were fresh, left only the previous night or early that morning. Chingu rested her hand firmly on her bone knife, rotating her ears constantly to scan for threats before slowly relaxing her grip once she confirmed immediate danger was absent. We will take a detour to avoid this boar trail. Chingu walked onward, her gait smooth and elegant. Lin Xin failed to slow his pace in time and bumped gently into her back as she halted against a tree trunk. Chingu stiffened in surprise, faint pink tinting her cheeks. Watch your footing as you walk. Lin Xin shook off the momentary awkwardness, quickly refocusing on their surroundings. Chingu favorability +1, a small boost in favorability from a simple accidental collision? It seemed a viable way to gradually raise her regard for him, though the thick forest teemed with dangerous wild beasts, making careless mishaps far too risky to attempt intentionally. Lin Xin walked a dozen paces farther before stopping short, his eyes locking onto the ground beside the trail. Broad, heart-shaped leaves grew low to the earth atop sturdy stalks. His heartbeat quickened with recognition as he knelt down to brush soil away from the plant's base, revealing brown outer skin on thick root tubers. He dug deeper to free a tuber as thick as an adult human forearm. Cassava. He had never seen live cassava plants in person, but recognized them instantly from countless educational videos. Heart-shaped foliage, upright stalks, large starchy root tubers. This was unmistakably cassava. He dug up 2 more tubers, hefting their heavy weight to gauge their rich starch content. Why are you digging these roots? Chingu stepped over to see the cassava in his hands, her brows furrowing with concern. These plants are poisonous. How do you know they are toxic? Tribesfolk have eaten them in the past. Chingu took 1 tuber and sliced open its exterior with a small stone blade. Consumption causes tightness in the throat, nausea, and vomiting. Minor cases leave people bedridden with pain for an entire day, while severe poisoning has proven fatal for some of our people. She shook her head sorrowfully. Do not touch these roots anymore, I urge you. Her tone carried firm warning. Lin Xin tightened his grip on the cassava tuber and met her gaze steadily. I know how to remove the poison. Chingu fell still, her ears tilting forward in sharp curiosity. What method would you use? First peel off all outer skin, Lin Xin explained. Cassava's poison breaks down under sustained high heat. Boiling the peeled roots for a full hour neutralizes all toxins, and you must discard the boiled water afterward, as it will contain leached poison. We can also process the tubers into cassava starch by soaking them repeatedly in fresh water with regular water changes over several days. Chingu stared at him for a long moment, the short tail beneath her leather skirt twitching subtly. She did not reply immediately, instead picking up a cassava root and turning it over repeatedly in her palms. Are you certain this will work? I am completely certain. Cassava grew in overwhelming abundance across this woodland patch. The wild boars that roamed the area fed on the roots, yet rarely dug up large quantities, and even the boars avoided overconsumption due to the plant's natural toxicity, leaving an untapped food resource ripe for the tribe's taking. If Lin Xin's detoxification method proved true, the tribeswomen would no longer need to undertake perilous long-distance hunting trips to secure enough food to survive winter. After a quiet pause, Chingu tossed the cassava roots into her leather-carrying sack. We will harvest them, then. Without proper digging tools, The soft soil near the stream bank made the work far easier. Using sharpened wooden sticks, the two gathered a large pile of cassava tubers in under an hour. Lin Xin let out a quiet remark. I never expected cassava to grow so large and prolific in these wild lands. Chingu shot him a confused look. What do you mean by wild lands? Nothing of importance. Lin Xin quickly corrected himself. They had set out to collect wild berries, but shifted their task to harvesting cassava, leaving their original goal unfinished. The large pile of tubers could not be left unattended in the woods, and distant roars of unknown predators echoed through the trees alongside faint glimpses of wild boar shapes hidden among the foliage, prompting them to head back to the cave at once with their harvest. The midday sun hung high overhead, burning warmly against their backs as they neared the cave entrance. Lin Xin sensed that something was wrong. Normally, tribeswomen would sit at the cave mouth to socialize in the sunlight at this hour, yet the entrance stood completely empty. A faint metallic tang of blood hung heavy in the air. He quickened his pace into the cave. Snow sat beside the campfire, her left leg wrapped in crumpled plant leaves soaked dark black with fresh blood. The elderly cow-eared elder knelt beside her tending the wound, and Snow ground her teeth hard against her lower lip with beads of sweat beading on her forehead as the elder tore away the old bloodied leaf dressing. Deep bite marks stretched from her knees all the way down to her ankles. The flesh gaped open, its edges already darkening. Tutu huddled in the corner, her eyes reddened. Aunt Ching set down her sack of cassava and hurried over, squatting to examine Luoshua's wound. Her brows drew tight with worry. How did this happen? A black panther. Luoshua's voice was flat and hollow. I ran into it while out hunting. How many of you went? 5. Luoshua paused briefly. We chased a stag deep into the woods and strayed straight into the panther's territory. Tears spilled down Tutu's cheeks. It's all my fault. I wasn't quick enough. Luoshua got hurt saving me. It's fine. Luoshua cut her off. Just flesh wounds. I'll heal in a few days. Lin Xin knelt down to inspect the injury. The bites were deep, yet there were no signs of inflammation or pus building up. Beast-eared women in this world possessed far stronger natural regenerative abilities than ordinary humans. Even so, an infection could still take hold if the wound was not thoroughly cleaned. Every member of the tribe stared anxiously at Luoshua's injuries. She spoke with a heavy sense of guilt. We came back empty-handed from the hunt, and the venison we caught 2 days ago is long gone. Silence fell over the cave, broken only by the faint crackle of the campfire. Several beast-eared women exchanged uneasy glances. A dog-eared woman's stomach rumbled loudly, the sound echoing sharply through the quiet space. The Clear Spring tribe abided by an old custom. Once wild fruits ripened in large quantities, the bitter cold of winter would soon follow. From that point onward, game caught during hunts had to feed the whole tribe and be preserved as stockpiles to survive the harsh months ahead. 4/5 of the deer meat had been eaten over the past 2 days, with the remaining 1/5 smoked and dried into jerky for winter reserves. This preserved meat was an inviolable resource, never to be touched no matter how hungry they grew, a rule strictly enforced every single year. Aunt Ching appended her berry sack across the stone platform, leaving only a sparse scattering of fruit that barely covered half its surface. This is all we gathered for berries today. She had spent most of their joint outing digging up cassava alongside Lin Xin, and chose not to mention this to the rest of the tribe. The beast-eared women stared at the meager pile of berries without uttering a word, yet Lin Xin could plainly see the distress etched across their faces. The small amount of fruit would not even be enough to feed 8 people, let alone the tribe's full population of 23. Didn't we dig up plenty of cassava? A young beast-eared woman murmured quietly. It's poisonous, another woman cut in immediately. Have you forgotten the tribesfolk who died after eating it years ago? But Lin Xin said he knows how to remove the toxin. Just because he claims it works doesn't make it true. What could a frail male possibly know about such things? Muffled whispers rippled through the group, yet no one dared go near the mound of cassava roots. Lin Xin stood beside the fire, meeting their evasive gazes without offering any defense. He knew words alone would never convince them. They would only trust him once they saw the roots made safe, ate the food, and felt their hunger fade away. Before he could take any action, Tutu stepped forward. I can get us food. Her tone was soft, yet every person within the cave heard her clearly. All heads swiveled toward the young rabbit-eared girl. Tutu clenched her fists. Her eyes were still glistening with tears, but she held her chin high with resolve. What are you saying? Aunt Ching frowned sharply. I said I can bring back food. Tutu repeated, her voice firmer this time. I'll use my innate ability. A stir erupted inside the cave at her declaration. No way. Do you remember how long you were bedridden the last time you used that power? It's far too taxing on your body. Several elder beast-eared women spoke in unison, their voices thick with alarm. Lin Qin studied 2-2 as a thought crossed his mind, recalling the affinity and ability columns on his system panel. If a target's fondness value reached 50 points, he would gain access to their unique innate abilities. 2-2's current fondness level sat at a mere 8 points, far below the required threshold. 2-2, Lin Qin spoke up. What exactly does your ability do? 2-2 shot him a quick glance and pressed her lips together. I have an affinity with wild creatures. I can draw a single nearby animal toward me, no matter what kind of beast it is. And what price must you pay to use it? Complete physical exhaustion, 2-2 replied. I'm left bedridden for a long while afterward. How long? 7 full days, Aunt Qing answered on her behalf. Last time you lured a stag here, you remained unconscious for a week straight. We took turns watching over you, feeding you water and keeping you warm, and you barely pulled through. Lin Qin looked at 2-2's small frame, dwarfed amid the taller beast-eared women like a sapling stunted in its growth. Still, she refused to back down. Her gaze drifted to the stone hammer propped against the wall beside the injured Luoxue. I'll strike it dead the moment it walks within reach. That's out of the question. Luoxue grew anxious. The cost of your power is too great to bear. Does anyone here have a better plan? 2-2 raised her voice sharply. Luoxue is hurt and cannot hunt. The berries are nowhere near enough to fill our bellies, and no one dares touch the cassava. What will we eat tonight? What about tomorrow? Dead silence descended over the cave once more. Aunt Qing parted her lips, but could find no words to respond. 2-2 drew a deep breath and turned toward the cave entrance. 2-2, Lin Qin called out to stop her. How long can you hold control over the animal you lure? Long enough for it to walk right up to my position. Lin Qin fell silent for 2 beats before nodding slowly. Very well. He truly had no better solution to offer. Earlier that day, he had spotted fish, river shrimp, and clear traces of wild boar activity during their trip outside, plus the large stock of cassava they had dug up. Catching fish required proper tackle, capturing shrimp demanded woven traps and bait, and hunting wild boar would mean constructing effective pitfalls. Detoxifying the piles of cassava would also take considerable time and careful preparation. If he stepped forward now and promised to feed the tribe by the next day, none of these wary women would believe his words. He also dared not make bold guarantees out of caution. This was a primitive wilderness world, nothing like the modern society he had come from. What if he failed to catch the fish in the stream? What if the river shrimp evaded every trap he set? What if his cassava detoxification method did not work as intended? More than anything, he wanted to witness 2-2's ability firsthand. After all, unlocking another person's special powers once fondness hit 50 points was a tantalizing prospect. As an ordinary office worker who had lived 24 dull years in his original world, the chance to wield supernatural abilities stirred eager anticipation within him. 2-2 walked to the edge of the woodland and closed her eyes. Lin Qin stood a dozen meters behind her, observing intently as the fine fur covering her rabbit ears stood straight on end, the tips trembling faintly. A strange vibration hummed through the air, akin to the buzz of bees beating their wings. 2-2's lips moved in a silent murmur, no sound escaping her mouth. Moments later, 2-2's eyes flew open, and she pointed toward the hillside below. It's coming. Every person held their breath. The crack of snapping branches echoed from deep within the forest, a string of crashing noises as something large barreled recklessly through the underbrush. The ground trembled faintly beneath their feet. A massive wild boar burst out from the thick shrubbery. It dwarfed any boar Lin Qin had ever seen, its shoulder height nearly level with his chest. 2 curved tusks jutted out from its jaws, glowing pale yellow-white under the sunlight. A stiff ridge of bristles ran down its spine from its forehead all the way to its tail tip. The beast easily weighed no less than 200 pounds, charging forward with the imposing momentum of a crude war chariot. Several beast-eared women let out short cries of fright and stepped backward instinctively. 2-2 stood rooted firmly where she was. The boar trotted slowly toward her, its gaze vacant and dim-witted, almost comically blank. 10 meters away. 5 meters away. 2-2 lifted her heavy stone hammer high above her head. 3 meters separated them now. The wild boar halted right beside her, lifting its large head to stare fixedly at the rabbit-eared girl, as if she were the brightest thing in its world. 2-2 swung the hammer downward with all her strength, slamming it hard against the boar's skull. The boar let out a low, guttural squeal. Its front legs buckled, and the huge beast collapsed onto the dirt ground. It twitched violently twice, then fell completely still. A heavy 3 seconds of silence hung over the campsite. Tutu's legs instantly gave out. She toppled backward like a sapling broken by fierce wind. Lin Xin lunged forward and caught her mid-fall, one arm wrapped around her waist and the other supporting her head. The rabbit-eared girl hung limp in his grasp, startlingly light in weight. Her eyes drifted half shut, her lips drained of color, her breathing shallow and rapid. She forced her eyes open long enough to glance at Lin Xin, her lips twitching in a silent motion before she slipped fully into unconsciousness. Tutu. Aunt Qing rushed over in a panic. She's all right, Lin Xin reassured her. She's only exhausted from overexertion. He carefully passed the unconscious girl into Aunt Qing's arms. The elder woman carried Tutu gently to a bed of dry straw in the corner and draped a thick animal hide over her body to keep her warm. The tribe gathered around the 200-pound boar carcass, enveloped in a long, somber quiet. At last, a dog-eared woman whispered softly, "We finally have enough food to eat." No one felt any joy over the meal, their gazes shifting between the sleeping Tutu in the corner and Luoshue's injured leg propped against the stone wall. Everyone understood exactly what sacrifice had paid for this supply of meat. Lin Xin knelt beside the boar and studied the caved-in wound on its skull, brain matter oozing from the fracture. It was plain to see Tutu had held back her full strength the night she first wandered into Clear Spring Tribe's cave. Lin Xin was utterly certain his own skull could never withstand a blow with that same force. He lifted his head to look toward Luoshua. Her lips were pale as she leaned against the rocky wall, her gaze fixed on Tutu's resting form, her mouth pressed into a tight, thin line. Several beast-eared women used bone knives to slit the boar's throat, collecting the rushing blood inside large stone pots. They passed these pots around the group freely, drinking the warm blood directly. "This fresh boar blood will restore our strength," they said as they drank. Lin Xin watched the scene, a wave of nausea rising in his throat. Truly, this primitive tribe still clung to savage, blood-drinking survival habits. A horse-eared woman wiped smears of dark blood from her mouth and leaned in to sniff the boar's flesh. Tutu sacrificed so much for this, but this boar meat carries a strong, unpleasant odor. Another cow-eared woman retorted, "Even so, it is far better than starving empty-handed." Lin Xin glanced at the boar's swollen belly. This is a male boar, which explains the sharp, musky stench, but the meat is perfectly edible. Do you know a way to get rid of the unpleasant flavor? Aunt Qing noticed Lin Xin's confident demeanor and asked curiously, "I can try to prepare it properly." Lin Xin knelt down next to the boar carcass. Some of the women continued passing around blood-filled stone pots, dark blood staining the corners of their mouths. Lin Xin could partially understand their actions. Without any natural salt sources within the tribe, they relied on animal blood to replenish the minerals their bodies required, and the blood offered quick bursts of physical energy. He tore his gaze away from the grim sight for the moment, focusing on resolving the problem with the boar meat. "Help me carry this boar over to the stream." Aunt Qing studied him briefly without asking further questions, gesturing for the women who had finished drinking the blood to lend a hand. Two young beast-eared women lifted the heavy boar and hauled it to the brook just outside the cave entrance. Lin Xin pulled a sharp flint shard from his waist, a leftover piece chipped away while he crafted stone spears. Its edge was sharp enough to slice open human skin with ease. He also picked up a thick bone knife carved from a wild beast's shoulder blade beside the campfire. Though not razor-sharp, the bone was sturdy enough for chopping through flesh and sinew. Armed with these two crude tools, he set about butchering the boar. "How do you normally dress hunted game?" Lin Xin asked Aunt Qing, who squatted nearby watching his movements. "Skin it, chop the flesh into chunks, then eat it plain," she replied simply. Lin Xin nodded without commenting on their crude methods and pressed the flint blade into the boar's abdomen, cutting a neat slit from its chest down toward its tail with controlled pressure, piercing only the skin and muscle layers. A flicker of surprise crossed Aunt Qing's brows. The male's technique lacked polished expertise, yet his cutting path was precise and correct, hardly the work of someone butchering game for the very first time. Her attention then locked onto the flint shard in his hand. In 30 years of life within the tribe, she had never seen stone honed to such a razor edge. The bone knives the tribe relied on for cutting meat were dull and clumsy by comparison. "Did you craft this stone blade yourself?" "I did. It cuts far better than our bone knives." She reached out to brush her fingertip against the sharp edge, yanking her hand back the second her skin grazed the blade. "How did you manage to sharpen stone this finely?" "You strike the stone along its natural grain, chipping away pieces little by little," Lin Xin answered without lifting his eyes from his work. Lin Xin instructed the women to shift the boar carcass into the shallow stream water, washing out all the internal organs and pooled blood. Dark red runoff drifted downstream, drawing small fish to circle the muddy bank. He cut the boar meat into cube-sized chunks, each piece layered with a thin strip of fatty pork belly. Why cut the meat into such small pieces? A curious dog-eared woman leaned in to watch. Small chunks will absorb flavor more easily while cooking. Absorb flavor? The raw boar meat has a strong musky reek. With no seasonings available, we can use wild berries to mask the unpleasant taste. Lin Xin stood and walked back to retrieve the berries collected earlier alongside Aunt Qing. A small pile of the dark purple, soft-textured berries remained, releasing a faint sweet tart aroma when squeezed between fingers. He poured the berries into an empty stone pot and mashed them thoroughly into pulp using a wooden stick. This mash will act as seasoning for the meat. Seasoning. Lin Xin rephrased the term for their primitive understanding. It will tenderize the meat and make it taste richer and more pleasant. Once Lin Xin and the other women finished breaking down the boar, they separated cuts of pork belly and racks of ribs for cooking. He set a stone pot over the campfire to blanch the meat, skimming off all the foamy impurities that rose to the water surface. He poured the mashed berry pulp and its juice into the pot until the liquid fully submerged the chunks of meat. How long must we simmer this? Aunt Qing questioned. Leave it to cook slowly over low heat. The fire crackled steadily as the water inside the stone pot began to simmer and bubble. Lin Xin used a wooden stick as a makeshift chopstick to turn the meat pieces evenly. The deep purple berry juice dissolved into the hot water, blending with rendered animal fat to turn the broth a glossy dark brown. A rich, layered aroma wafted outward, not just the savory scent of cooked meat, but a deep, fruity fragrance wrapped within it. The natural acid in the berries seeped into the meat fibers, softening tough muscle tissue and eliminating dry, stringy textures. Heat melted the fat from the pork, forming tiny glistening oil droplets floating across the broth surface. Every beast-eared woman's animal ears shot straight upward, their tails wagging rapidly with eager anticipation. What is that wonderful smell? The horse-eared woman poked her head out of the cave, breathing in the scent greedily. It smells incredible. An elderly cow-eared woman stepped outside, standing at the cave mouth to inhale the cooking fumes deeply. Even Luoxue, who had been sitting rigid against the stone wall with a pained frown, opened her eyes and turned her gaze toward the savory aroma drifting in from outside. Lin Xin stayed fully focused on tending the simmering meat, stirring the pot constantly to prevent burning. The liquid bubbled steadily, thickening into a rich sauce as the pale pink meat darkened into a glossy brown, coated in a shiny layer of savory glaze. There was no sugar, soy sauce, or cooking wine to enhance the flavor, only the natural fructose and citric acid from the wild berries reacting under sustained heat. Caramelization and acid hydrolysis broke down the boar's gamey musk while generating complex, appetizing flavor compounds within the pot. What he had created was effectively wild berry braised pork belly and pork ribs. An hour ticked by. Lin Xin prodded a chunk of meat with his wooden stick. The utensil pierced straight through the tender flesh with no resistance. He skewered a piece of meat on the stick, blew on it to cool it down, and took a bite himself. He chewed slowly. The fatty pork melted instantly on his tongue, while the lean meat pulled apart into tender shreds with zero dryness. The sharp tartness of the berries had mellowed completely into a subtle fruity sweetness, wiping away every trace of the male boar's unpleasant musky odor entirely. He swallowed the mouthful and waited a moment before speaking to Aunt Qing. It's safe to eat now. Aunt Qing took the meat from the stick and bit into it slowly. She took one small bite, chewed thoughtfully, paused for a heartbeat, then popped the whole piece into her mouth. Without a single spoken comment, she reached for another chunk of meat, and this action spoke volumes about how delicious the dish had turned out. Give me a piece. I want some too. Everyone wait your turn. The women swarmed toward the pot in an instant before Lin Xin could react, crowding tightly around the stone cookware. Form an orderly line. Lin Xin raised his voice to calm the crowd. One person at a time. The moment the words left his mouth, Lin Xin froze in place. All the beast-eared women stared at him with clear surprise. The horse-eared woman whispered to those beside her. Did he just tell us to line up to receive our food? I'm glad someone is keeping order during the meal, another woman replied. I'd happily queue patiently for such delicious cooked meat. A third woman murmured earnestly. Quit letting your thoughts wander. He only wants everyone to get their share fairly. Aunt Qing cracked a rare smile, stepping forward to hold back the overeager horse-eared woman. Lin Xin prepared this meal. We will follow his lead when serving the meat. Lin Qin used thin bone fragments to portion out the meat one by one to each woman, who held large broad leaves as makeshift bowls. Leaves Lin Qin had instructed them to gather earlier for tableware. These beast-eared women had never eaten cooked food before, with no concept of eating utensils whatsoever, and they were amazed by how sturdy and convenient the large foliage was for holding their meals. Each woman took their first bite, froze for a second in shock, then lit up with delight and hurried to take another mouthful. "What is this dish?" the horse-eared woman asked with her mouth full. Meat was never meant to taste this good. Lin Qin carried a serving of braised pork belly and several rib cuts over to Luoxue, resting against the cave wall. "Eat up. The protein will speed your wound recovery." "It's so tender." Luoxue shot Lin Qin a grateful look before biting into the meat. "It melts right in my mouth. This is wonderful. Did you add sour wild berries to the stew?" The dog-eared woman stared in disbelief at the berry pulp settled at the bottom of the pot. "I've eaten these berries raw before. They're painfully sour on their own. How did they turn the meat this tasty after cooking? I never imagined sour berries could be used to stew meat this beautifully." Only broth remained inside the large stone pot, yet the tribe was still hungry. They planned to boil more foraged plants in the leftover savory broth for a second helping. Tutu remained weak and unconscious against the cave wall, unable to walk over for her portion. Lin Qin picked out a generous chunk of braised meat and knelt down beside her resting place. "Try a bite." Tutu opened her mouth weakly to accept the food as he held it out to her. She chewed slowly, her cheeks flushing pink once she swallowed the meat. "It tastes amazing. It's absolutely wonderful, especially considering I was the one who lured this boar for the tribe. No one can complain about the boar's unpleasant scent now." After finishing her meal, Tutu lifted her gaze to meet Lin Qin's eyes. Luoxue also wandered over a short while later. "Which tribe did you originally come from?" "I have no tribal roots," Lin Qin answered. "Then who taught you all these skills?" "I figured them all out on my own through trial and error." Luoxue studied his face intently for 2 full seconds, but chose not to press him further. Her gaze drifted down to the crude leaf dressing wrapped around her injured leg, clearly skeptical of his claim of having no tribal upbringing. "A hearty, satisfying dinner has earned the beast-eared women's growing goodwill toward you. Affinity +3 affinity, +2 affinity, +1 affinity, +1 total accumulated affinity reaches 63 points. You have obtained 1 unallocated attribute point." Lin Qin opened his system panel to check the updated stats. 2 affinity, 11 Luoxue affinity, 10 Qing affinity, 7. Originally only 8 women held positive affinity toward him, yet after the warm braised meat dinner, 13 tribe members now viewed him favorably. He thought quietly to himself. Beast-eared women respond with trust and warmth when you treat them sincerely and provide for their basic needs. This way of earning their trust was well within his capabilities. The sun dipped below the tree-line, slanting streams of golden sunlight through the cave's entrance. The beast-eared women finished their first round of the meal. Each held a leaf in their hands, licking the residual grease lingering on its surface with obvious longing. Lin Qin squatted beside the stone pot, rummaging around the bottom with a wooden stick. Nothing remained but a thick pool of broth and tiny shreds of meat scattered within the liquid. He fished out the meat scraps and set them down on a clean leaf. All the fatty meat had melted away during cooking, leaving only lean meat fibers wrapped in dark brown sauce that glowed amber beneath the sunset glow. He picked up a piece and popped it into his mouth. It was still incredibly tasty. The fructose and tartness from the wild berries had fully broken down under high heat. Sweetness had seeped into every strand of the meat, while the sour notes softened into a faint, pleasant fruity aroma. The lean flesh was tender instead of stringy, chewy with a satisfying bite. Rich meaty flavor flooded his mouth as he chewed, sliding smoothly down his throat in the end. He grabbed another chunk with wild boar skin attached. Simmered for over an hour in the stone pot, the tough, rubbery hide had transformed into translucent gelatin. It was springy the moment it touched his tongue, breaking easily under gentle pressure from his teeth. The sticky gelatin coated his tongue along with the savory sauce, bringing an immense sense of satisfaction. Lin Qin closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again. He glanced toward the group of beast-eared women beside him, all of them staring straight at him. "What are you looking at?" he asked. The horse-eared girl swiveled her ears slightly. "You look so focused when you eat. Almost as solemn as a ritual offering," the dog-eared girl added. Lin Qin fell silent for 2 seconds before stuffing another mouthful of meat. "You wouldn't understand. This is called a sense of ritual." The rabbit-eared girl leaned against the stone wall and watched Lin Qin eat. Her ears drooped down, her eyes reddened, though not from sorrow. "What's wrong with you?" Lin Qin questioned her. Nothing. She turned her face away, then looked back again. I just feel guilty watching you go hungry. It's not your fault. They're starting the second batch of stew now. I'll wait for that pot. Eating too early will only leave me waking up starving in the middle of the night. There was far too much wild boar meat to preserve raw, so it all needed to be cooked without delay. The beast-eared women had watched Lin Qin's cooking process step by step and were now recreating the method on their own. The rabbit-eared girl mumbled quietly. If you hadn't shown up, I never would have gotten to eat that meat, and I nearly lost my life over it. Yet here you are, not even getting a proper full meal. Tears genuinely welled up in her eyes as she spoke. Rabbit Girl favorability +2 Lin Qin let out a soft sigh. He held out the largest piece of meat with skin from his leaf bowl toward her. Want some? She shook her head. Eat it. More meat will help your injuries heal faster. You've told me that dozens of times already. Because you keep refusing. Lin Qin brought the meat right to her lips. Open your mouth. Hesitant, the rabbit girl parted her jaws and bit down on the meat chunk. She chewed twice, and tears spilled down her cheeks. Now what's wrong? It's just too delicious. She spoke with her cheeks stuffed full while crying. How do you make meat taste this good? Who exactly are you? Luoxua sat by the cave entrance, her back pressed against the stone wall as she stared out at the setting sun. 2 pieces of meat still sat untouched on her leaf plate. Lin Qin walked over with his leaf bowl and crouched down beside her. Aren't you going to finish those? I'm not hungry. You said the same thing this morning and at noon. Lin Qin eyed the substantial portion left on her leaf. Are you holding back your share so the rest of us can eat more? Luoxua's ears twitched faintly. I saved this for Ollie. She would love meat this flavorful. Lin Qin nodded and shifted to a new subject. Luoxua, I have a few questions to ask you. Go ahead. How powerful is the wolf-ear tribe exactly? Luoxua turned her head to meet his gaze. Do you want the truth or a gentle lie? The truth. One prominent tribe at its peak had over 50 members. Her tone remained flat and emotionless. The wolf-ear tribe slaughtered 30 of them in a single afternoon. Lin Qin raised an eyebrow in surprise. They're that formidable? A single wolf-eared warrior can fight 3 people as strong as me, Luoxua continued. They run faster, possess greater strength, and their fangs can crunch straight through bone. What's more, they have male tribesmen among their ranks. Are males that significant here? Judging by how the beast-eared women treated him, males did not seem to hold a favorable standing in this world. The male wolf clansmen are pure-blooded wolf people. 1 male warrior matches the combat strength of 5 female wolf ears. Luoxua's gaze drifted toward the distant mountain ridge. They rely on their males for reproduction, and every cub born is raised as a fighter from childhood. Meanwhile, she trailed off, yet her unspoken meaning was crystal clear. The Clear Spring tribe did not have a single male member to bear offspring with. Even if one existed, their hybrid young would never match the innate power of pure wolf clans folk. Lin Qin sensed the conversation veering into uncomfortable territory. A discussion about hostile wolf tribes had somehow twisted into a topic of reproduction. He worried the conversation would spiral into awkward situations once again if they kept talking along this line. What about the fragrant grass tribe? He quickly changed the topic. Are they also an all-female tribe with no males? They are, Luoxua confirmed with a nod. Unlike us, every member of the fragrant grass tribe is rat-eared. They do not hunt for food. They survive through theft. They steal dried meat, animal hides, and handcrafted tools. Disdain tinged Luoxua's voice. They never dare engage other tribes in open combat, but they swarm like pests whenever a settlement is left unguarded or small groups are caught traveling alone. They've been lingering around our territory constantly these past few days. Her expression turned cold. Winter is approaching, and they're scrambling to pilfer supplies to survive the cold months. Lin Qin frowned. Why don't they just attack head-on? They don't dare. The rabbit girl cut in, lifting her chin with quiet pride. They fear Luoxua and Aunt Qing. Luoxua alone can take down 3 warriors from the fragrant grass tribe. Then what is there to worry about? Luoxua fell silent for several heartbeats. They dig underground burrows. The second they lose a fight, they vanish deep into their tunnels. Lin Qin, I have another question for you, Luoxua. Lin Qin swept his gaze across all the women gathered inside the cave. The wolf-ear tribe is entirely wolf folk, and the fragrant grass tribe consists solely of rat ears, but our Clear Spring tribe. He looked at the assorted beast-eared women scattered across their campsite and counted them off on his fingers. Horse ears, dog ears, deer ears, cow ears, cat ears, rabbit ears, fox ears. 7 distinct kinds all huddled together in one group. It was an incredibly mismatched gathering. Luoxua shot him a faint glance, the corners of her lips tugging upward ever so slightly. Do you want a polite answer, or the unvarnished truth? The truth. We were all driven away from our original homes. Lin Xin froze the instant those words left her mouth. Luoxue pointed a finger to her own chest. I originally belonged to the Snowfield tribe, a clan made up entirely of cat people. I could never run fast enough, so I was cast out. She then gestured toward the rabbit girl. She came from the Rabbit Ear tribe. Kidnapped when she was little, a wide river now separates her from her birth clan with no way back. Aunt Ching, she indicated the elder deer-eared woman, was born into the deer tribe. Antler size is everything to their people. She grew no antlers at all and endured endless mockery before leaving on her own. The dog girl over there was chased out at only 6 years old, her tribe deeming her sense of smell too weak to be useful. The cow-eared woman endured an even crueler fate. Her clan saw her short tail as an ill omen and nearly killed her. She barely escaped with her life. Luoxue finished speaking and fixed her eyes on Lin Xin. Do you understand now? Lin Xin nodded slowly. Clear Spring Tribe was not a wonderfully diverse community. It was a refuge for outcasts abandoned by the world. They had not chosen to band together. They had nowhere else left to go. Yet this ragtag group of discarded souls had endured and survived for years within this shabby cave. Noticing the look on his face, Luoxue let out a quiet, soft laugh. Do you feel sorry for us? Not exactly, Lin Xin replied. I just think, you've all been through so much hardship. Luoxue favorability +2 Luoxue stiffened slightly at his words, turning her head back to watch the sunset once more. A long moment passed before she spoke again, her voice barely audible. Ollie should have returned by now. Dimness had filled the cave interior. The distant mountain ridgeline glowed golden under the sinking sun, the warm hue gradually fading into a muted slate blue. Aunt Ching walked to the cave mouth and scanned the wilderness outside. Still no sign of her. Luoxue pushed herself upright using her wooden staff. A sharp twinge from her leg wound made her wince, but she gritted her teeth against the pain without making a sound. I'm going to look for her. Your leg is injured. Lin Xin frowned with concern. I know. She shifted her walking stick to her left hand. But Ollie is out there alone. If she hasn't come back by dark, she has either run into trouble or discovered something important. Aunt Ching, guard the cave while I'm gone. Luoxue limped slowly toward the cave exit. I'll retrieve Ollie. Wait. Aunt Ching stepped forward to block her path. Let me go instead. You cannot leave the cave, Luoxue refused firmly. You are our strongest fighter right now. If members of the Fragrant Grass tribe attack while you're gone, who will defend our home? Aunt Ching fell silent with no counterargument. Luoxue stepped around her and continued forward. Her gait was unsteady from her injury, yet every single step she took was firm and resolute. Lin Xin stood at the cave entrance and watched as she departed into the deepening twilight alongside several other beast-eared women. Lin Xin squatted by the cave mouth, still clutching the wooden stick he had used to fish meat from the pot. He stared out toward the slate-blue mountain range in the distance, a knot of unease settling in his chest. Over 30 minutes had passed since Luoxue left with her injured leg to search for Ollie, and there was still no sign of their return. Staring won't make them appear out of thin air, the dog-eared girl said as she stepped out from the cave. She carried half-finished hemp rope in her hands and settled down near the entrance to resume twisting the fibers into cordage. Lin Xin pressed his lips into a thin line. The dog girl was right. There was nothing he could accomplish by staring blankly into the wilderness. He had no sharp canine nose to track scents, nor cat-like night vision to navigate the dark. Charging out after them would only create extra trouble for the search party. Still, waiting idly was not a viable option either. Lin Xin stood and brushed dust off his trousers. Do any of you have thin, curved hard bones around here? Something sturdy would work best. The dog-eared girl lifted her head to glance at him. What do you need bones for? I plan to fashion fish hooks. Fish hooks. They're tools used to catch fish. Lin Xin gestured to demonstrate the shape. Carve a bone into a sharp, J-shaped curve, tie cord to it, bait the end, then toss it into the water. When a fish bites down, you pull it back to shore. The dog girl stared at him for 2 full seconds with an expression that clearly read, Are you telling me some ridiculous tall tale? Aunt Ching wandered over with a handful of unfinished rope in her grasp, having overheard his mention of crafting fish hooks. She felt no immediate skepticism toward his idea. She had long noticed how odd Lin Xin could be, yet he never spoke empty words. He had promised to build a bow and delivered on it. He had claimed he could start fire artificially and succeeded. Every claim he made eventually came to fruition. There's a pile of leftover bones stacked against the wall over there. Help yourself sort through them. Aunt Ching nodded toward a corner of the cave. Lin Qin turned toward the indicated spot. Activity bustled within the cave at that moment. The horse-eared and cow-eared women sorted through the leftover wild boar meat from the day. With food scarce for the coming cold season, they wasted nothing, not even the animal innards. An elderly cow-eared woman worked to cure and tan animal hides, while young Suli, the child dog-eared girl, lay atop a bed of dry hay with her ears perked straight upward, her eyes locked firmly on Lin Qin's movements. Lin Qin, what are you making now? Suli scrambled to her feet, scurrying over on short legs to squat beside him, her tail wagging back and forth behind her. Fish hooks, Lin Qin replied as he knelt beside the bone pile to sift through the fragments. What even is a fish hook? Just wait and see once I finish making it. Humph. Suli puffed out her cheeks and stayed crouched beside him, her tail never stopping its gentle swaying. The bone heap held all manner of fragments, thick wild boar thigh bones, rib shards left from the stew, and miscellaneous old bone scraps coated in fuzzy mold from long-term storage. Lin Qin sorted through the mess and picked out bones nipped clean from raw meat. Bones boiled during cooking lost much of their hardness and tensile strength, making them unsuitable for fish hooks. These raw, chewed bones had the perfect thickness and natural curvature for his needs. He selected a few extra pieces as spares, carried his haul to the cave entrance, and settled in a well-lit spot to grind the bones against a rough stone slab. He sprinkled a little water on the stone surface and rubbed the bone back and forth, creating a soft, scratching, grinding sound. Suli crept closer after a few minutes, leaning forward with her hands braced on her knees to watch intently. What are you grinding? A fish hook. Why do you need to grind it? The bone is straight naturally. It has to be curved to work properly. Why does it need to be curved? Lin Qin paused his work to glance down at the young girl, already swamped by her endless stream of questions. Why do you ask about everything? Suli blinked, her ears drooping slightly with hurt dejection. I just want to know. Lin Qin heaved a quiet sigh. There was an old saying back in his hometown. Children between 7 and 8 years old are endlessly inquisitive and hard to handle. This young dog-eared girl was only 5 to 7 years old, yet just as persistent with her questions. Fine, go ahead and ask whatever you want. You said fish hooks catch fish. What is a fish anyway? Fish are creatures that swim underwater. They have long, scaled bodies and can breathe beneath the water's surface. What are scales? They're hard protective plates covering a fish's body, similar to snake skin, but different material. Lin Qin cut himself off mid-explanation, realizing he had no simple way to describe fish to a child who had never laid eyes on such a creature in her life. Never mind, he waved a hand dismissively. I'll catch one tomorrow, and you'll see for yourself. Suli nodded vigorously before adding eagerly, Can I eat it when you catch one? Lin Qin shot her a knowing look. After all those roundabout questions, that was what she had truly cared about all along. Sure, he agreed. You can have a portion once I pull a fish out of the water. Suli's ears shot straight upward in excitement, her tail wagging so fast it blurred like a spinning rattle. Yay! Lin Qin lowered his head and resumed grinding the bone. Aunt Qing observed the scene from the side, her mouth twitching as she fought to hold back a smile. 10 minutes into the grinding process, his first bone blank snapped cleanly in two. Lin Qin muttered a small curse and tossed the broken piece aside to grab a new bone fragment. The second attempt was successful. He carved a small groove into the top end of the bone to secure the binding cord, sharpening the tip into a serviceable point sharp enough to pierce fish flesh. The craftsmanship was crude and unrefined, yet fully functional for his purpose. Fish native to this world would have no innate wariness toward man-made hooks, so a rough design would more than suffice. Lin Qin held up the finished hook to inspect it, satisfied with his handiwork. Aunt Qing leaned in for a closer look with a skeptical frown. Will that crude thing actually catch fish? We'll test it and find out. Lin Qin tucked the fish hook inside his clothing. Worst case scenario, I only wasted a scrap of bone with no real loss. Aunt Qing pondered his logic and chose not to press the matter further. His next task was preparing the fishing line. He took several lengths of cord the tribe had fashioned not from hemp, but from softened bark stripped from local trees. This fiber had proven durable during his earlier fire starter construction, yet the strands were far too thick for fishing line. He laid 2 strips across his thigh and rolled them slowly between his palms to thin and twist the fibers together. Twisting cord was deceptively taxing work. Too tight a twist would cause the line to coil and knot, while too loose a weave left the cord weak and prone to snapping. Within minutes, the skin of his palms grew bright red from the friction. Suli wandered over once again. What are you doing now? Twisting fishing line. Why is it called fishing line? Because it attaches to the hook for catching fish. Why are you twisting it with your hands? There are no machines to do this work for me. What's a machine? Forget I mentioned it. Lin Xin halted his work and stared at the chatterbox child once more. This little girl truly never ran out of questions. He suppressed the sudden urge to snap at her. Scolding a young child would only leave her crying inconsolably for hours. Lin Xin calmed his rising irritation and shook his head. It was pointless to grow annoyed with a kid. Suli favorability +2. The sudden system notification lifted Lin Xin's mood instantly. The talkative youngster no longer felt bothersome at all. Children really were far easier to win over with small gestures. What was more, Suli's total favorability now stood at 6 points, ranking 4th highest among all the beast-eared women and even surpassing Ali's current value. Suli knelt in place, her gaze fixed intently on Lin Xin's busy hands. After a moment, she stretched out a tiny palm and gently brushed against his reddened skin. Your hands are all red. Lin Xin glanced down at his palms. Friction had left 2 shiny raw patches, and continued twisting would inevitably raise painful blisters. It's nothing serious, he brushed off her concern casually. Suli said nothing more and ran off abruptly. Lin Xin assumed she had grown bored and wandered off to play elsewhere, paying the odd behavior no mind. Less than 2 minutes later, the girl darted back toward him, cupping a folded leaf in her palms. Resting atop the leaf was a thick dollop of a paste that resembled mud, yet carried a distinct herbal scent. What's this? Lin Xin asked curiously. Grandma Nyo said to smear this when your hands get cut. Xiao Su held the leaf out toward him. Your palm is red. Put some of this on, and it won't hurt anymore. Lin Xin stared at the dark paste, then looked at Xiao Su's earnest face, freezing for 2 seconds. Truth be told, he hadn't expected the little one to run off to gather medicine for him. It was an innate instinct for animals to seek out curative plants when sick or injured. The paste the young canine-eared girl had brought carried a distinct medicinal scent, so it ought to soothe his raw, stinging palms. His skin burned fiercely, nearly rubbed raw, and the most sensible choice was to stop working and let his hands recover. He took the leaf, scooped up a dab of the paste with his finger, and spread it across his palm. A cool, soothing sensation washed over the sore area right away. Thanks. Xiao Su broke into a grin, her ears twitching gently as she blinked her big, clear black and white eyes. Nearby, the mare-eared woman knelt sorting animal hides. Her ears swiveled slightly as she murmured to the cow-eared elder beside her. He treats the child quite kindly. The canine-eared woman nodded in agreement. This male is far better than the last one we had. Mare-eared woman's favorability toward you +1. Canine-eared woman's favorability toward you +1. Lin Xin blinked in surprise, then offered a grateful smile to the beast-eared women around him. Total favorability, 81 points. 81 points already. He only needed 9 more points to unlock his 3rd free attribute point. Without hesitation, he would allocate that 3rd point to intelligence again. The fishing line was finished. Lin Xin tugged it firmly. It was sturdy enough, if a little thick. But that hardly mattered. How large could the fish possibly grow in this world? A thick cord would not snap under tension. Next came the float. This part was straightforward. He cut a short segment of dry timber, carved a narrow groove into its middle, and fastened the line into the notch. The wood would float on the water's surface. When a fish bit the hook and pulled, the float would dip downward to signal a catch. Lin Xin fetched a dead branch outside the cave, sliced it into chunks with his stone knife, picked the driest, lightest piece, and began carving the groove. Xiao Su did not pester him with questions this time. She simply squatted beside him, occasionally reaching out to touch the wood shavings scattered on the ground. Fish hook, fishing line, float, all complete. Only one component remained, the sinker. Sinkers pulled the hook down to the riverbed. With no lead available, smooth stones would have to suffice. Lin Xin gathered several small pebbles, selecting one peanut-sized stone of ideal weight. He tucked the fishing line into a slit carved into the stone and secured it tight with a knot. Rough and unrefined as the tackle was, the whole set was finally assembled. He rolled up all the fishing gear, bound it together with thin vine, and set the bundle by the cave entrance. Chingu had watched his entire process of fashioning equipment from bones, twisted cord, and chunks of wood. She still could not fathom how the contraption was meant to work. Where did you learn to make all these things? I figured them out myself, Lin Xin replied. Chingu shot him a skeptical glance, her expression plainly saying she did not believe his claim for a second. Then the mare-eared woman spoke up. Lin Xin, is your mind constructed differently from ours? Lin Xin glanced back at her. Would you like to crack open my skull to check? The mare-eared woman waved her hands hastily. Nothing of the sort. I just find it remarkable how you repurpose useless scraps and piece them into functional tools. That isn't a difference in how our minds work. Lin Xin wiped the dried medicinal paste from his palms. It's learning to build solutions even when resources are scarce. The mare-eared woman nodded with partial understanding. The elderly cow-eared elder ambled slowly out of the cave, tugged forward by Xiao Su. The little girl trotted over, clutching the elder's hand. Grandma Nyo, come quick. Lin Xin made another new thing. Grandma Nyo walked to the cave mouth and peered down at the fishing tackle laid out before her. The hook, line, float, and stone sinker. She studied the assembly for a long moment before lifting her gaze to meet Lin Xin's eyes. Does this device also help us find food? Lin Xin nodded. In a manner of speaking. It harvests food from the river water. Grandma Nyo fell silent for several heartbeats, then gave a slow nod. I have lived a long life and seen countless tribes come and go. Her voice was graveled and slow, yet every word carried weight. Groups that stubbornly cling to old methods eventually starve. Those willing to test new ways endure longer. She knelt and brushed a rough fingertip against the bone fishhook. This contraption looks strange, Grandma Nyo remarked. Yet the oddest tools often prove the most effective. The surrounding beast-eared women exchanged quiet glances, none daring to speak aloud. Lin Xin noticed their perspective toward the fishing gear had shifted entirely. Skepticism had softened into cautious belief, and that was more than enough. He rubbed his hands together, staring at his handiwork as he mapped out his next task. The fishing tackle was done, but one more tool was needed, a fyke net. More accurately, a ground trap woven from vines, wide at the opening and narrow toward the sealed rear, lined with inward-pointing barbs that trapped fish and shrimp once they swam inside. Unlike active fishing with a hook and line, the trap could be left submerged unattended, needing only periodic collection. If the angling failed to land fish, the trap could still catch shrimp as backup. Two separate methods meant a far better chance of securing food. Lin Xin stood and went to gather fresh vines. Dried vines were too brittle for weaving and prone to snapping. Chingu told him a thick patch of vines grew behind the cave, with tough, flexible stems perfect for crafting sturdy woven goods. He circled around the cave and found dense green vines coiled around several short trees. He cut a large bundle, using his stone blade, and carried it back to camp to soak in water. Soaking softened the vines and prevented breakage during weaving. While the vines soaked, Lin Xin double-checked his finished fishing tackle. He verified the hook bindings, tested the security of every knot along the line, and weighed the stone sinker to ensure it would not drag the float fully beneath the water surface. Carelessness now would lead to frustrating problems once they reached the riverbank. Xiao Su tagged closely at his heels the entire time, observing his every movement as he prodded the fishhook and pulled taut the fishing line, a faithful little shadow. Aren't you bored with nothing to do? Lin Xin asked her. I'm learning how you make things, Xiao Su stated earnestly. Learning my craft. MHM. She nodded vigorously. Once I master this skill, I can help the tribe gather food too. Lin Xin stared at her earnest small face, overcome with a quiet swell of emotion. A child of 7 or 8 years old worried about feeding her tribe in this brutal primitive world. Back on Earth, children the same age only fretted over video games and after-school snacks. He did not respond verbally, instead reaching down to ruffle the top of her head. Her beast ears felt soft and plush, much like a cat's ears. You're still too young for this work, Lin Xin said with a faint smile. Xiao Su's ear flopped sideways from his touch, but she did not pull away, instead smiling softly with her eyes half closed. 30 minutes passed, and the soaked vines had fully softened. Lin Xin picked one and tested its pliability. It bent into a tight circle without splitting or snapping. Lin Xin. Chingu's voice suddenly echoed from the cave entrance. Lin Xin lifted his head. She stood framed in the cave mouth, gripping a stone spear, her gaze fixed sharply toward the woodland beyond the valley. What's wrong? There's movement in the trees. Chingu gestured toward the forest edge. The mare-eared woman's ears shot upright, swiveling to pinpoint the source of the sound. Lin Xin hurried to the cave mouth and scanned the outdoors. The moon had risen overhead, bathing the entire valley in pale, silver moonlight. Rustling footsteps echoed faintly from the distant tree-line, multiple sets of footsteps, not a single creature. Beneath the moonlight, pairs of eerie, glowing green eyes flickered intermittently at the forest's boundary, watching the cave with unblinking, ghost-like stares in the darkness. Chingu tightened her grip on her stone spear, her gaze locked rigidly on the thick jungle foliage. What are those things? Lin Xin whispered in a low tone. Chingu did not answer, her brows furrowed tightly. The beast-eared women possessed far sharper senses than Lin Xin. Her ears stood fully erect, picking apart every subtle footstep echoing through the trees. The footsteps drew steadily closer. Lin Qin swallowed hard and glanced back into the cave. The campfire still blazed brightly, and the remaining beast-eared women had sensed the danger, rising to their feet while clutching their crude weapons. Grandma Nyo stood deep within the cave with a calm, unperturbed expression. Xiao Su hid behind the elder, clinging tightly to her garment with both hands and peeking out with wide, startled eyes. The glowing green eyes drew nearer still. Lin Qin narrowed his eyes, straining to discern shapes amid the shadows. At last he made out clear outlines. One figure limped forward in the lead, followed by several others. "It's Luo Xue," the canine-eared woman exclaimed first, twitching her nose to identify scents on the breeze. "I smell Ollie too. They're back. All of them have returned." The moment her words faded, Luo Xue stepped into the moonlit clearing, her leg wrapped in a crude dressing that forced her to walk with a noticeable limp. Behind her walked Ollie alongside two more beast-eared women. All carried the cold chill of the wilderness clinging to their bodies, but none bore fresh wounds. Lin Qin counted each person. Every missing member had come home safely. A heavy weight lifted from his chest. "Thank goodness you're all back." Lin Qin breathed out in relief, then frowned sharply. "Ollie, what happened to you?" Ollie's face was smudged with dirt, dry leaves tangled in her hair, yet her eyes shone bright and alert. "I'm completely fine," she grinned widely. "What took you so long to get back?" Xiao Su darted out from behind Grandma Nyo and tilted her head up to question her. "I'm starving half to death." Ollie flicked her bushy tail, dropped heavily beside the campfire, grabbed a leaf plate and piled roasted meat into her mouth, her cheeks bulging like a hamster as she chewed. "This meat tastes sweet and tangy. It's incredible." Mumbling around her mouth full of food, she continued, "I found something huge this afternoon." Lin Qin handed her a large stone bowl of cool boiled water. "Drink first, then tell us slowly." Ollie lifted the hefty stone bowl and chugged down the water greedily. She swallowed the meat in her mouth, wiped her lips, and her eyes darted around the group with excitement. "I sneaked over to the Fangqiao tribe's territory this afternoon and spied on them from a mound of earth. Guess what I saw?" "What did you see?" The mare-eared woman leaned forward curiously. "They were drying animal hides and cured meat." Ollie stretched her arms wide to demonstrate the massive stockpile. Huge piles of supplies, at least 7 or 8 whole hides, with cured meat stacked up like a small hill. "They've definitely been stealing supplies constantly lately." Chingu knitted her brows. "Where would they get such a large stockpile?" "I have no clue." Ollie shook her head. "But those goods definitely weren't hunted by their own tribe." The frail rabbit-eared woman spoke up weakly. "The Fangqiao tribe only survives by thievery." Ollie nodded fiercely before lowering her voice into a conspiratorial hush. "I overheard their conversation talking about the arrow Luo Xue shot last time." She mimed drawing and firing a bow. "One of their rat-eared females was wounded in the leg and cried for days afterward. They call our tribe's bow a flying piece of wood that pins people to the ground. Now they tremble just mentioning our tribe's name and dare not step anywhere near our valley." Lin Qin nearly choked hearing their crude nickname for the bow and arrow. It fit the primitive locals' way of naming unfamiliar objects perfectly. The bow wielded far greater deterrent power than he had anticipated, leaving the rival tribe traumatized with a single shot. "Where exactly are they stealing these supplies from?" Lin Qin pressed for details. "From other smaller neighboring tribes." Ollie waved her hand dismissively. "They sneak into their camps under the cover of night and rob them blind. Surely those tribes notice the thefts. What could they possibly do even if they find out?" Ollie shrugged her shoulders. "Those small groups only have a dozen members at most. They cannot win a fight against the Fangqiao tribe and have no choice but to accept their losses." Lin Qin leaned against the stone cave wall and sorted through the information in his mind. The Fangqiao tribe consisted of rat-eared people clumsy at hunting but skilled thieves. Terrified of the Clear Spring tribe's bows and arrows, they would not dare target their settlement, leaving weaker minor tribes to bear the brunt of their raids. It formed a brutal natural food chain. The Clear Spring tribe feared the wolf-eared tribe, the Fangqiao tribe feared the Clear Spring tribe, and tiny scattered tribes lived in terror of the Fangqiao thieves. Every group had something to fear. No one in this wilderness could afford mockery toward another. "Luo Xue," Lin Qin turned to the archer. "Do the robbed tribes have any connections with us?" "None whatsoever." Luo Xue replied bluntly. "They keep their distance out of fear of our tribe. Why would they fear us? We have never stolen anything from them. Our numbers are small, and our people bear mixed beast heritage." A faint smile tugged at Luo Xue's lips. "But we have over 20 members total. Those tiny tribes will actively avoid us when they spot our patrols." Lin Qin let out a quiet huff. "Even a ragtag, overlooked tribe carried its own form of deterrence in these wildlands. Why are the Fangchao tribe hoarding so many provisions? For the coming winter, Luoxue explained. They lack the skill to hunt reliably and rely entirely on stolen goods. They rob every small camp they can find before the weather turns cold, then seal themselves inside their cave for the season. Lin Qin stared into the flickering campfire flames as he weighed his options. The Fangchao tribe was a nuisance, but not an immediate threat. Frightened by their archery, they would not launch an attack anytime soon. His most pressing priority was stockpiling enough food for the Clear Spring tribe before winter arrived. We will ignore them for now, Lin Qin decided. As long as they leave us be, we have no reason to act. What if they attack us later? Ali asked. Lin Qin glanced toward the bow hanging fixed to the cave stone wall. We will handle that scenario if it arises. They know full well we possess bows and will not act recklessly. Ali laughed heartily and reached for another portion of roasted meat. Luoxue leaned back against the cave wall, her leg bound with dried hide bandages. The wound's blood had crusted over, yet her limp persisted with every movement. The Fangchao tribe remained unaware of her injury. If they discovered their most skilled archer was wounded and unable to fight, their brutal thieving band would undoubtedly storm the Clear Spring cave to plunder every resource they possessed, including Lin Qin, the only human male within their tribe. Lin Qin frowned deeply and walked back to the campfire to crouch down among the women. I need to address something important. His voice was soft yet loud enough for everyone in the cave to hear clearly. All the beast-eared women lifted their heads to focus on him. Not a single person is to speak of Luoxue's injury to anyone outside this cave. Lin Qin warned in a low voice. Ali tilted her head in confusion. Why not? The Fangchao tribe only fears us because of Luoxue's arrows. Lin Qin lowered his tone further. If they learn she is wounded and unable to fight, what do you believe they will do? A heavy silence fell over the cave. Qinggu was the first to grasp the gravity of the situation and nodded firmly. They will sneak in to steal our supplies under the cover of night. They will strike when our guard is split, and Luoxue cannot give chase to stop them. Precisely, Lin Qin affirmed. This secret must stay buried within these cave walls. My lips are sealed tight. Ali struck her chest firmly with her palm in a sincere gesture, earning a brief glance from Lin Qin. Xiao Su piped up quietly. Am I forbidden to tell anyone too? Not a word from you either. Lin Qin fixed his gaze gently on the young girl. No matter who asks you questions about it. Xiao Su nodded firmly, her beast ears bouncing with emotion. Luoxue held her stone bowl without uttering a single word the entire time Lin Qin spoke. Once he finished speaking, she lifted her eyes to study him. You plan ahead quite thoughtfully. It is called taking precautions against foreseeable dangers. Lin Qin stood and walked to the cave entrance to straighten his finished fishing tackle, neatly arranging the hook, line, float, and sinker side by side. At dawn the next morning, he would head down to the river. If fishing failed, he would set the trap for shrimp. If shrimp were scarce, he would gather river clams. One method was bound to yield food. I never finished weaving the fight trap. Lin Qin sighed, his work interrupted by the returning tribeswomen. He sat down and resumed weaving the vine trap. Truth be told, he had never constructed one with his own hands before. He had only watched fishermen weave ground traps to catch crabs and shrimp in short online videos, which had looked deceptively simple, just winding vines into a cage shape. But there was an enormous gap between watching a process and executing it with his own hands. Lin Qin struggled almost immediately after beginning to weave. The cage structure came out loose and misshapen, warping the moment he lifted it up. He also could not craft the inward barbs correctly. The angles were always off, too steep for aquatic creatures to crawl inside, or too shallow to keep them from swimming back out again. He unwove and rewove the vines repeatedly, yet every attempt produced a flawed trap. Qinggu watched his struggles for a while before commenting dryly. I thought you were skilled at crafting woven items. Bows and arrows are different work. Lin Qin wiped sweat from his brow. I had a physical bow to copy for those. I have zero first-hand experience building this trap. Qinggu said nothing further, though her expression plainly conveyed amusement at seeing him face a task he could not immediately master. Lin Qin made one more failed attempt before tossing the tangled vines aside and slumping against the cave wall with a long, weary sigh. He understood the structural logic perfectly in his mind, yet his hands could not follow through, leaving him unable to finish even a simple fish trap. As he rested against the stone surface, a sudden thought crossed his mind. The system. He had received notifications before when the beast-eared women's favorability rose, granting free attribute points. He closed his eyes and silently called for his status panel in his thoughts. A translucent, glowing screen unfurled before his eyes, hovering mid-air like a sheet of polished glass. Lin Qin, human, stamina, 3 endurance, for intelligence, 6 unassigned attribute points. 1. Should I allocate the point to intelligence? Could it actually sharpen my mental clarity? He glanced toward the pile of ruined vine weavings on the ground and resolved to test it no matter what. Assign the point to intelligence, he willed silently. The number on the panel flickered upward. Intelligence increased from 6 to 7. The status interface faded away. Lin Qin waited 2 full seconds for a physical shift to appear, yet nothing changed. He stared down at his rough, calloused hands. They looked exactly the same as before. He picked up a fresh vine to resume weaving and froze in shock. His hands themselves had not transformed. His mind had. More specifically, the complete blueprint for the fish trap suddenly crystallized with perfect clarity inside his head. The design had been vague and fuzzy in his memory before, with all structural details indistinct. Now every vine's weaving path, the exact diameter of each loop, the ideal length and angle for each internal barb was vividly mapped out in his thoughts, as if a precise construction schematic had been drawn for him to follow. His hands moved with newfound natural coordination as well. Holding the vine stem, he instinctively knew how many times to twist each strand and where to thread the next piece of vine through the weave. His hands moved faster than his conscious thoughts could register each step. 1 loop, 2 loops, 3 loops. He inserted each inward barb methodically, sealed the trap's opening, and tied the final fastening knot. The entire construction process took less than 10 minutes. Lin Qin lifted the finished trap and inspected it closely. The woven structure was solid and robust. He squeezed the frame hard, and it did not bend or deform in the slightest. Shaking the trap vigorously also produced no warping. The vines locked tightly against one another in a stable, secure framework. "I've finished it. You finished it?" Chingu stepped forward to examine the trap, her outlook drastically different from her earlier skepticism. Where she had seen messy, tangled vines before, she now beheld a properly crafted functional cage. Though unfamiliar with the tool's purpose, the careful structural weaving was plainly evident. "I managed to get it right on the final try." Lin Qin replied casually. "What exactly did you do differently this time?" Chingu reached out to touch the sharp inward barbs inside the trap, jerking her finger back quickly after pricking her skin on the hardened vine tips. "Anything that enters this cage cannot escape again." "Exactly." Lin Qin grinned broadly. "Fish and shrimp swim inside and become trapped. Submerge it in the river and leave it unattended. We only need to retrieve it every few days to collect our catch." Chingu turned the trap over and over in her hands, her doubtful expression shifting into thoughtful contemplation as she tried to envision how the device would function underwater. Xiao Su leaned her head over to peek at the trap and poked one of the barbs with her fingertip, letting out a small cry of pain as the sharp vine pierced her skin. "It hurts." She pulled her hand back, her eyes glistening with hurt tears. Lin Qin saw only a tiny break in the skin with no serious damage. "I warned you not to touch it carelessly." Xiao Su pressed her lips together in a dejected pout, but held back her tears. Lin Qin sighed, scooping a small amount of the medicinal paste Xiao Su had brought earlier and dabbing it onto her wounded fingertip. "There, the pain will fade soon." Xiao Su sniffled softly and popped her sore finger into her mouth to soothe the ache, mumbling indistinctly. "Lin Qin, this cage you built looks fierce and unforgiving." Lin Qin let out a faint smile. "Tough creatures are easier to catch, after all." He set the shrimp trap by the cave entrance, arranging it alongside the fishing tackle he had just finished crafting. 1 set of fishing gear, 1 shrimp trap. Tomorrow he would head down to the river, casting his fishing line and tossing the trap into the water. His chores for the day were done. He planned to rise early the next morning to fish by the river and get a solid night's sleep for now. Sue had long curled up into a fluffy ball amid the dry hay in the corner, tucking her tail over her face as soft snores rumbled steadily from her small frame. Chingu leaned against the flattest stone wall deep inside the cave, her eyes half-lidded. Her ears twitched every now and then, keeping watch over both the campfire and the cave mouth. Lin Qin laid down beside her. The cave floor was as hard as concrete, digging uncomfortably into his bones. Though he had layered thick piles of hay beneath him, it did little to block the frigid chill seeping upward from the earth below. Mountain winds swept along the ground, carrying a piercing cold that cut straight through his body. The icy air seeped through his pores into his bones, sending constant shivers down his spine. Tossing and turning restlessly, Lin Qin could find no comfortable position to settle into, the underground cold never letting up for a single moment. He stood and knelt close to the fire to warm himself. The flame scorched his face and chest with harsh heat, yet his back remained icy cold. Torched up front, frozen stiff behind, the jarring contrast tormented him far worse than plain, unbroken cold ever could. He laid back down again, curling his entire body inward. Knees pressed tight to his chest, hands wedged between his thighs. He tried desperately to lock in what little body heat he possessed. But the underground cold paid no heed to his efforts, creeping upward layer by layer to stiffen his limbs completely. Night winds swirled freely within the cave, driving bitter cold through every crack in the stone and into his clothing. Exhausted from days of non-stop labor, drowsiness washed over him. His mind grew foggy, his eyelids heavy enough to weigh him down, and his limbs turned numb, nearly devoid of all sensation. Half asleep, he sensed a warm mass right beside him. It was warm, soft, and carried the faint scent of sun-dried bedding, a precious comfort amid the bitter mountain cold. His mind could no longer process clear thoughts, yet his body reacted purely on instinct, shuffling slowly toward the source of warmth. First his shoulder brushed against soft fur, then his arm wrapped around the warm figure. It was wonderfully warm, wonderfully soft. The gentle warmth wrapped around his frozen arms and legs at once. He buried his face fully into the warm surface, drawing his numb extremities toward the coziest spot he could find. Chingu's body instantly tensed rigidly. She had been dozing lightly while guarding the fire, her muscles loose and relaxed. A cold weight suddenly pressed into her embrace, jolting her so sharply she nearly bolted upright. Glancing down, she found Lin Qin huddled against her torso, his face pressed into her leather pelt garment. His cold hands had slipped beneath the hide, resting directly against her warm torso. His skin was ice-cold against hers, sharp enough to make Chingu hiss from the chill. "You?" Her words died unfinished when she saw that Lin Qin had already slipped into deep slumber. His breathing was slow and even, the tight frown he wore throughout the day smoothed away entirely. He looked just like an unguarded, sleeping child. Chingu stared down at him for a long moment. Her first impulse was to push him away. His icy palms chilled her skin sharply, and his current posture was far too improper for two people sharing the cave shelter. Yet watching how soundly he slept, her urge to shove him away faded away completely. The faint upturn tugging at the corner of his mouth showed he was likely dreaming of fresh fish to eat. She sighed quietly, pulling her leather cloak higher to fully cover his curled form. The midnight mountain winds could easily freeze a person to death out here. If he fell seriously ill from hypothermia, who would provide for the tribe's survival? She justified her softening stance stubbornly to herself in her mind. Now warmed through, Lin Qin grew restless in his sleep. It was only natural. When freezing to the bone, one only craves warmth. Once comfortable heat returned, his hands moved restlessly in his sleep. Still half conscious, his fingers brushed lightly across her waist. Soft. His hand drifted a little lower, brushing against her hip. Even softer. Chingu stiffened from head to toe in an instant. Her pointed ears shot straight upward, the fur on her tail bristling outward like a stiff brush. Her whole body flushed hot, the tips of her ears burning bright crimson. "Lin Qin," she hissed sharply, her voice trembling with agitation. Lin Qin did not stir in the slightest. Instead, he snuggled deeper into her warmth, looping his arm firmly around her waist to hold her close against his body. His own body had warmed up now, pressing against her like a small warm stove. His warm breath fanned across her collarbone, stirring an unsettling fluster within her chest. Chingu was caught between anger and flustered anxiety, her fingers clenched tight enough to creak. She tried to pry his wrists apart and push him away, yet the moment she laid eyes on his oblivious, sleeping face, all her strength drained away completely. The sharp rebuke she had prepared dissolved into a quiet huff that vanished into the dark cave air. Firewood crackled in the hearth, and the wind howled outside the cavern walls. Just then, a translucent floating panel flickered to life at the edge of Lin Qin's field of vision. Chingu favorability +3. The notification flashed once before fading again. Chingu stared blankly down at the man resting in her arms for a long while. The mix of embarrassment and irritation inside her gradually melted away, replaced by a gentle, warm tenderness she could not name. After some time, she lowered her gaze slowly, resting her chin lightly atop Lin Qin's hair and closing her eyes. Her taut, pointed ears drooped gently, and her bristled tail softened back into fluffy fur, draping loosely over the dry hay. Flickering firelight cast their intertwined silhouettes onto the cave wall, merged closely together, emanating a quiet, reassuring warmth. The next morning arrived. Lin Qin woke to sunlight filtering through the cave entrance, blinding his bleary eyes. Blinking awake slowly, the first thing he saw was Chingu's chin above him. He then realized he was wrapped fully around her body like an octopus, his face pressed to her collarbone, both arms wrapped around her waist, and one leg draped over hers. It was an extremely awkward position to wake up in. Lin Qin fell completely silent, frozen with embarrassment. He hesitated 2 seconds before slowly pulling his arms free from her waist. Chingu had not woken, though her ears twitched faintly the second he moved. Lin Qin pretended not to notice, forcing a calm demeanor as he rolled over and sat upright, rubbing his stiff neck. Last night, he vaguely recalled dreaming of clinging to a warm hot water bag. He brushed the memory aside and focused on his surroundings. The campfire had nearly burned out, leaving only glowing red embers among the ash. He tossed handfuls of dry hay onto the coals, reviving small dancing flames once more. Sue remained curled up in her corner, tail still covering her face as her loud snores echoed through the cave. Chingu stirred awake soon after, her eyelashes fluttering softly. She only cracked her eyes open a sliver before rolling onto her side, turning her back toward him without a word. Neither of them brought up what had happened the previous night. Their schedule for the day was packed with tasks. Lin Qin sorted through the fishing tackle and shrimp trap he had built the night prior. The tribe's most skilled hunter had sustained an injury, and the other beast-eared women lacked confidence to hunt. After discussion, the group split into several teams to forage for food across the wilderness. Chingu called over Ali, with Sue trotting along eagerly behind them. "I'm heading for the river today." Lin Qin lifted the shrimp trap. "I'll set this trap and fish for our food supply." Sue raised her hand excitedly. "I want to fish too." "You'll go berry picking with Chingu and the others instead." Lin Qin pressed a thin wooden stick into her palm. "You're far too restless. Every fish within miles would be scared off by your commotion." Sue pouted but did not argue against his instruction. Chingu glanced at the shrimp trap in his hands and spoke suddenly. "What bait will you use inside the trap?" "Meat." Lin Qin sorted through leftover wild boar scraps, picking out 2 chunks of trimmings and slicing small pieces of raw pork head meat. Fish and shrimp are both drawn to meat bait. Ollie frowned in confusion. Wasting meat to feed fish. "It's an investment, trading small scraps for a haul of fish," Lin Qin corrected her. Ollie did not fully grasp his meaning, yet she voiced no further questions. If it meant catching edible fish, those leftover meat scraps were hardly a meaningful loss. Before leaving the cave, Lin Qin remembered the cassava roots he had dug up the previous day. He dragged the thick tubers out from the cave corner, peeling their outer skin with a stone blade to reveal pale, white flesh inside. He chopped the roots into short chunks, planning to soak them in river water. "What are you doing?" Ollie stepped closer to watch his work. "Leaching out the natural toxins." Lin Qin rinsed mud off his hands. "This root is poisonous when eaten raw. I'm hoping soaking it in water will remove the harmful compounds." "Are you certain this method will work?" "Not entirely certain," Lin Qin answered honestly. "But we have to try. If we can make cassava safe to eat, we will have a reliable food source to survive the coming winter." Ollie nodded in agreement. In such harsh times, desperate measures were necessary. If he had a method to neutralize the poison, testing it was far better than enduring constant hunger. By the time the group reached the riverbank, the sun had climbed above the treetops. Bright light glinted across the river surface, water rushing loudly downstream, the air thick with a mingled scent of river mud and wild grass. Lin Qin first located a backwater eddy along the stream, where the current slowed and swirled inward. It was an ideal natural spot to soak the cassava chunks undisturbed. He dumped all the cut cassava into the still water, stacking heavy stones around the pile to stop the pieces from floating away with the current. Leave them to soak for a full day. Lin Qin washed mud from his palms. "Let's go fish now." He had barely taken a step forward when Ollie stretched out an arm to block his path. "Someone is approaching." Chingu's hand instantly flew to the stone spear fastened at her waist. Lin Qin followed their line of sight toward the tree-line. 3 ragged figures stumbled frantically out of the forest, clutching bundles tightly to their chests as they gasped for breath. The figure leading them hauled half a slab of raw meat over their shoulder, while the 2 followers gripped thick animal hides in their arms. These women possessed round rodent-like ears, flopping with every hurried step they took. Lin Qin's eyes narrowed sharply. Rat-eared females. And there were 3 of them in total. Chingu recognized the lead figure as Gray Ear, a notoriously cunning member of the fragrant grass tribe. She was the type to seize any easy advantage and pilfer resources whenever the opportunity arose. Gray Ear skidded to an abrupt halt the moment she spotted the group by the river, nearly tripping headfirst onto the muddy bank. Her 2 companions froze in place behind her, clutching their hides and gasping for air, their faces caked in dirt with bloodshot eyes. Clear signs they had fled non-stop through the night for countless hours. 6 small, round eyes locked onto the group all at once. A heavy silence fell over the riverbank. Gray Ear's gaze swept over Chingu first, then Ollie, before darting suspiciously toward the space behind Ollie. Ollie stepped sideways to shield Lin Qin from view, yet her small frame could not fully conceal him. Gray Ear caught sight of the man hidden behind her with one quick glance. Lin Qin stood at the rear of the group, dressed in strange foreign clothing and holding the shrimp trap in his grip. Gray Ear's narrow eyes lit up with greedy light the second she laid eyes on him. Lin Qin recognized that greedy glint instantly, identical to the look shoppers wore spotting steep discount signs in a marketplace, predatory, eager to pounce without hesitation. Well now, would you look at this? Gray Ear's voice dripped with undisguised excitement as she sauntered forward slowly with an unnaturally exaggerated posture that made Lin Qin's skin crawl. The elder was right. Clear Spring Tribe has not only mastered fire, but they're hiding a human male within your settlement. Her 2 rat-eared companions closed in beside her, 6 eyes roaming over Lin Qin's figure from head to toe with calculating scrutiny. It felt as if they were evaluating the quality of a slab of butcher's meat. Lin Qin felt a surge of exasperation. He was not some stockpiled grain locked away in a rat's nest to be hoarded. Look at his build. Gray Ear clicked her tongue, thick jealousy lacing her tone. In our fragrant grass tribe, he would be treated as our most precious treasure. Trapped here with your meager supplies. She paused, curling her lip in disdain. With what little you have, how do you possibly hope to sustain him? Chingu's expression darkened sharply. Watch your words, Gray Ear. Am I lying? Gray Ear tilted her head upward with insolent arrogance. Everyone knows the sorry state of Clear Spring Tribe, an assortment of mixed beast clans with barely any capable fighters. You didn't even have fire not long ago. She corrected herself hastily upon remembering the campfire burning within the cave earlier. Even with fire now, your small band will never survive the harsh winter. Wasting such a valuable male here is nothing short of reckless waste. Come back with us to Fragrant Grass Tribe instead. We have insulated underground dens to withstand freezing winters, stockpiled food stores, and dozens of tribe members who will tend to your every need. Life there is 100 times better than starving out here in the wilderness. Lin Qin scoffed silently to himself at her words. Dozens of attendants? Being tended to like some breeding stud? Furthermore, he had his own standards for those around him. The members of Clear Spring Tribe bore the features of cats, rabbits, canines, deer and foxes, all far more pleasing to the eye than these shifty, rat-featured women. Thieves who steal from others have no right to pass judgment, Ollie said coldly. Gray Ear's smug smile froze on her face immediately. One of the hide-carrying rat-eared women flushed bright red with anger. We did not steal these goods. We earned every bit through hard labor. Gray Ear's pleasant facade vanished completely, her features hardening with hostility. Enough pointless bickering. She fixed her gaze firmly on Lin Qin, jutting out her chin. Male, come with us willingly. Do not make this difficult for yourself. Ollie's tail flared outward aggressively, her knuckles white around her stone spear as she lifted the weapon's tip. Touch him and face the consequences. And what will you do? Gray Ear bared a row of sharp, tiny teeth in a sneer. You have no seasoned warriors among you. One frail human male, plus a mere child. Do you truly believe you stand a chance against us? She shot a dismissive glance toward Sue and let out a mocking snort. The outcome of a fight is already decided. Tension hung thick and volatile in the air. Lin Qin had remained quiet through the entire confrontation, sorting through every piece of information he had gathered in his mind. Fragrant Grass Tribe, rat-eared clanswomen fleeing with stolen meat and hides, intent on abducting him. They were the same group that had spied on the Clear Spring Tribe cave 2 nights prior, chased off only by Luoshue's well-placed arrow. Lin Qin himself had crafted that very arrow. A sudden thought struck Lin Qin sharply. The bow and arrowhead had been loosely bound to the wooden shaft. When the arrow was pulled free after embedding itself in a tree, the head would separate cleanly from the shaft. He had meant to refine his crafting method afterward, never expecting the flawed arrow to serve such a useful purpose so soon. Gray Ear grew impatient with Lin Qin's silence, mistaking his quietness for fear. Her smirk widened with growing confidence. Male, think carefully. Come with me, and I guarantee. Lin Qin cut her off by stepping forward. Ollie reached out to hold him back, yet he gently brushed her arm aside and walked to the front of the group alone. He advanced 3 deliberate steps toward the rat-eared woman. Gray Ear's eyes lit up with triumph, certain the male had conceded to her offer. Lin Xin stared at the triumphant woman with a calm, unreadable expression, his tone level and steady. Leave this place right now. Gray Ear blinked in stunned confusion. Huh? Lin Xin continued speaking slowly, each word clear and weighty. If you depart immediately, you will walk away unharmed. Gray Ear furrowed her brows, ready to retort, yet Lin Xin spoke before she could utter a single sound. Remember what happened 2 nights ago. Remember how your tribeswoman was wounded. Gray Ear's expression stiffened instantly, cold dread washing over her to crush all her prior arrogance. Lin Xin locked eyes with her unwaveringly. The bone shard is still embedded in her wound, isn't it? Gray Ear's lips trembled violently, unable to form a single coherent word. Her mind raced with panicked confusion. There was no way an outsider could know the secret. The nighttime raid had taken place in pitch-black darkness. They had believed their trespass had gone entirely undetected. Their leading tribeswoman had been struck by the stray arrow. The bone arrow had snapped off and lodged deep in the flesh when they tried to extract it. The wound had festered with infection ever since. This left the woman bedridden and immobile. This misfortune was known solely within Fragrant Grass tribe's inner circle. Lin Xin watched her panicked reaction with quiet satisfaction. He knew the truth for one simple reason. He had built that arrow himself. He had noticed the weak binding during crafting and anticipated the head would break off upon forceful removal. What he had planned to fix later had unexpectedly become a powerful defensive asset. It was a fortunate accident he could not have planned for. Lin Xin took another step forward, prompting Gray Ear to stumble backward instinctively. This territory belongs to the Clear Spring tribe. Lin Xin's voice was not loud, yet every syllable carried heavy weight. Do you wish to suffer the same festering injury as your incapacitated tribeswoman? Gray Ear's face paled to an ashen shade of white. She met Lin Xin's gaze, finding no savage ferocity typical of beast clans. Only a chilling, unshakable calm, as if he were stating an unavoidable fact. What frightened her most was the certainty in his threat. Those wooden projectiles that flew through the air were eerily unpredictable. Their injured elder remained bedridden with an untreated bone fragment inside an infected wound. Fragrant Grass tribe had robbed and antagonized nearly every neighboring clan, earning widespread hostility across the region. They were in no position to pick a fight with a tribe wielding long-distance lethal weapons. From the corner of her eye, she spotted other Clear Spring tribeswomen moving through the nearby trees. They were on their own territory, and Gray Ear's legs began to shake uncontrollably with mounting fear. Lin Xin let out a faint smile. Being fierce is a good thing. Only then can we catch something. He set the shrimp trap by the cave entrance and arranged it alongside the fishing tackle he had just finished making. One set of fishing gear, one shrimp cage. Tomorrow he would head down to the river, hang up the fishing lines, and toss the cage into the water. His chores for the day were finished. He planned to fish by the river first thing the next morning and get a solid night's rest now. Sue had long curled up into a fluffy ball amid the dry hay in the corner, tucking her tail over her face as soft snores rumbled out steadily. Chingu leaned against the flattest stretch of stone deep inside the cave, her eyes half-lidded. Her ears twitched every now and then, keeping watch over the bonfire as well as the cave opening. Lin Xin laid down beside her. The cave floor was as hard as concrete, digging uncomfortably into his body. Though he had layered thick piles of hay beneath himself, the cold seeping up from underground still cut right through the padding. Mountain winds swept low along the ground, carrying a piercing chill that sank straight into his bones with every breath. The frigid air wormed through his pores and settled deep in his joints, making him shiver nonstop. Lin Xin tossed and turned endlessly, unable to find a comfortable position no matter how he shifted. The cold from the earth never faded for a moment. He stood and crept closer to the fire to warm himself. The flames scorched his face and chest painfully, yet his back remained icy cold. Stuck between burning heat up front and freezing cold behind, this jarring contrast tormented him far worse than plain, unrelenting cold ever could. He laid back down again, hunching his body into a tight ball, knees pressed against his chest and hands tucked between his thighs. But the underground cold paid no heed to his efforts, slowly permeating his whole frame and leaving his limbs stiff and numb. Night winds swirled freely inside the cavern, driving icy drafts through cracks in the stone to seep into the gaps of his clothing. Exhausted from days of nonstop labor, drowsiness washed over Lin Xin. His mind grew foggy, his eyelids heavy enough to weigh him down. His extremities went numb, barely responsive to sensation. In his half-asleep haze, he sensed a warm mass right beside him. It was warm, soft to the touch. It carried the clean scent of sun-dried bedding. an incredibly comforting presence amid the bitter cold of the mountains. His mind was too muddled to think rationally, but his body reacted on pure instinct, shuffling toward this source of warmth. First his shoulder brushed against soft fur, then his arm draped over the warm figure beside him. So warm, so soft. The gentle warmth wrapped around his frozen limbs instantly. He buried his face against the warm surface, drawing his stiff hands and feet into the coziest spot he could find. Chingu's body instantly went rigid. She had been dozing lightly while guarding the fire, her muscles loose and relaxed. The sudden weight of Lin Qin's cold body pressing against her jolted her sharply, nearly making her bolt upright. Glancing down, she saw Lin Qin huddled against her torso, his face pressed into her leather garment, his cold hands resting against her warm torso through the hide. The icy chill of his skin made her hiss sharply. You. Her words died unfinished when she noticed he had already fallen fast asleep. His breathing was slow, steady, and deep. The furrowed crease between his brows that lingered throughout the day had smoothed out completely. He looked just like a defenseless child lost in peaceful slumber. Chingu stared down at his sleeping face for a long while. Her first instinct was to push him away. His icy hands felt like blocks of ice pressed against her skin, and their current closeness was far too improper. Still, watching him sleep soundly with a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth, most likely dreaming of fresh fish. Her urge to shove him away melted away without reason. She let out a quiet sigh, tugged her leather cloak higher. She draped it securely over his curled form to shield him from the mountain night, cold capable of freezing someone to death. She inwardly justified her softening resolve. If he fell seriously ill from the cold, who would help provide food for the tribe? Now warmed through, Lin Qin grew restless in his sleep. When overwhelmed by cold, one only craves warmth. But once comfortable, unconscious fidgeting follows. Still half submerged in slumber, his fingers brushed gently against her waist. Soft. His hand drifted a little lower for another faint brush. Even softer. Chingu stiffened from head to toe in an instant. Her pointed ears shot straight upward, the fur on her tail flaring out like a stiff brush. Her body temperature spiked sharply as the tips of her ears flushed bright crimson. Lin Qin, she snapped in a hushed, trembling voice. Lin Qin did not stir in the slightest. Instead, lulled by the comforting warmth, he nestled deeper against her, his arm looping firmly around her waist. Now warmed up himself, he pressed against her like a small stove, his warm breath fanning across her collarbone. This stirred a flustered restlessness within her. Chingu was overwhelmed by a mix of irritation and embarrassment. Her fingers clenched tightly until her knuckles creaked as she tried to pry his wrists free and push him away. Yet the moment she caught sight of his oblivious sleeping face, all her strength seeped away uselessly. The reprimand she had been ready to utter faded into a quiet breath that vanished into the dark cave. Firewood crackled in the hearth, while wild wind howled outside the cavern walls. At that very moment, the translucent floating panel in the edge of Lin Qin's vision flickered to life silently. Chingu favorability +3. The notification flashed once before fading away again. Chingu remained frozen, gazing down at the man nestled against her for a long time. The tangled feelings of embarrassment and aggravation slowly dissipated, replaced by a gentle, soothing warmth spreading through her chest. After some time, she lowered her gaze, rested her chin lightly atop Lin Qin's head, and slowly closed her eyes. Her taut pointed ears drooped down naturally, and her fluffed tail softened back into its usual plush state. Flickering firelight cast their intertwined silhouettes against the cave stone walls, merged closely together in a vision of quiet warmth. The next morning arrived swiftly. Lin Qin woke to bright daylight filtering through the cave entrance. Blinking groggily awake, the first thing he saw was the curve of Chingu's chin. He then realized he was clinging to her like an octopus. His face pressed into her collarbone, both arms wrapped around her waist, one leg slung over her own. It was an extremely awkward and undignified posture. Lin Qin fell completely speechless for 2 full seconds before slowly drawing his hands away from her waist. Chingu had not woken, though her ears twitched faintly at his movement. Lin Qin pretended not to notice the small reaction, calmly rolled onto his side, and sat upright, rubbing his stiff neck. Last night, he vaguely recalled dreaming of hugging a warm hot water bag. He brushed the memory aside without further thought. The bonfire had nearly burned out, leaving only glowing embers smoldering among the ashes. He added armfuls of dry hay, reviving the small flames once more. Sue remained curled up in the corner, her tail draped over her face as her loud snores echoed through the cave. Chingu stirred awake shortly after, her eyelashes fluttering softly. She only cracked her eyes open a sliver before rolling onto his side with her back turned toward him. Neither of them mentioned what had happened the previous night. They had a full schedule of tasks for the day. Lin Xin counted over the fishing tackle and shrimp cage he had finished building the night prior. The tribe's most skilled hunter was injured, and the other beast women lacked the confidence to hunt game successfully on their own. After discussion, the group split into several teams to forage for food across the surrounding wilderness. Chingu called over Ali, with Su trotting along excitedly behind them. "I'm heading for the river today." Lin Xin lifted up the shrimp trap. "I'll set this cage and fish for us." Su shot her hand upward eagerly. "I want to fish too." "You're going berry picking with Chingu and the others instead." Lin Xin pressed a thin wooden stick into her palm. "You're far too restless. You'll scare every fish away before we can catch anything." Su pouted in disappointment, but did not argue. Chingu glanced at the shrimp cage in his hands and spoke up suddenly. "What bait will you put inside the trap?" "Meat." Lin Xin sorted through leftover wild boar scraps, picking out 2 small chunks of offal and slicing up a few pieces of raw pork head meat. Fish and shrimp are both drawn to meat bait. Ollie frowned in confusion. "We're using precious meat just to feed fish?" "We trade meat for fish," Lin Xin corrected her. "This is an investment." Ollie did not fully grasp his wording, but she raised no further questions. If this method could yield fish, wasting a few insignificant meat scraps was well worth it. Before they left the cave, Lin Xin remembered the cassava roots he had dug up the previous day. He dragged the thick tubers out from the cave corner, peeled their outer skin with a stone blade to reveal the pale white flesh within. Then he chopped the roots into short chunks to soak in river water. "What are you doing?" Ollie stepped closer to observe his work. "Leaching out the toxins," Lin Xin explained. "These roots are poisonous if eaten raw. I'm hoping soaking them in water can draw out the harmful substances." "Are you certain this will work?" "I can't say for sure," Lin Xin answered honestly. "But we have to try. If we can make cassava safe to eat, we won't go hungry through the harsh winter months." Ollie nodded in agreement. Desperate times called for desperate measures, and if he had a method to neutralize the poison, it was far better than starving. By the time their small group reached the riverbank, the sun had climbed above the treetops. The river's surface shimmered under sunlight, water rushing along with a constant gurgle, the air filled with a mingled scent of river water and wild grass. Lin Xin first located a back eddy along the stream. The current slowed and water swirled inward naturally, the perfect spot to soak his cassava chunks. He dumped all the chopped roots into the pooled water and stacked stones around the perimeter to stop them from being washed downstream. "Leave them to soak for the whole day." Lin Xin washed mud off his hands. "Now let's go fish." He had barely taken a step forward when Ollie stretched out an arm to block his path. "People are coming." Chingu's hand immediately closed around the stone spear fastened at her waist. Lin Xin followed their line of sight toward the tree line and spotted several ragged figures stumbling frantically out from the forest. They were clutching bundles to their chests while gasping for breath from their frantic run. The lead figure carried half a carcass of hunted meat slung over her shoulder. The 2 women behind her held thick animal hides pressed tightly against their bodies. These beast women possessed round mouse ears that bounced with every hurried step they took. Lin Xin's pupils narrowed sharply. Mouse beast women. And there were 3 of them in total. Chingu recognized the lead female as Gray Ear, a notoriously crafty member of the fragrant grass tribe. She was the type to seize any advantage or valuable resource she came across without hesitation. Gray Ear skidded to an abrupt halt the moment she spotted the group by the river, nearly tripping headlong onto the muddy ground. Her 2 companions halted right behind her, clutching their hides and panting heavily. Their faces caked in dirt with bloodshot eyes, clear signs they had been fleeing non-stop through the night for countless hours. 3 pairs of beady round eyes locked onto their group in unison. A heavy silence fell over the riverbank. Gray Ear's gaze swept first over Chingu, then Ollie, before she peered sneakily around Ollie's frame. Ollie shifted sideways to shield the people behind her, yet her small stature left her unable to fully block their view. Gray Ear caught sight of Lin Xin standing at the back instantly. The man dressed in strange foreign garments holding a shrimp cage. Gray Ear's small eyes lit up with greedy excitement. Lin Xin recognized that exact glint. It was identical to the greedy sparkle shoppers had when spotting heavily discounted goods in supermarkets, hungry to rush forward and claim the prize for themselves. "Well, look who we have here," Gray Ear drawled in an overly excited tone. She sauntered forward in an awkward, affected gait that made Lin Xin's skin crawl. The elder was right. The Clear Spring tribe not only mastered fire, but you've actually hidden a male human among your people. The 2 other mouse beast women crowded beside her, their 6 eyes roaming over Lin Xin's body from head to toe with a calculating stare, just like shrewd customers picking out the highest quality cuts of meat at a market stall. Lin Xin inwardly groaned. Hidden a male? He was a human being, not stockpiled grain hoarded away inside a rat's nest. Look at his sturdy build. Gray Ear clicked her tongue, her tone thick with bitter envy. Back at the fragrant grass tribe, a male like this would be our most precious treasure. But stuck here with your meager supplies, she paused deliberately, curling her lip in disdain. With what little you have, how can you possibly support him? Chingu's expression darkened sharply. Watch your words, Gray Ear. Am I lying? Gray Ear tilted her head upward with a defiant sneer. Everyone knows the state your Clear Spring tribe is in, a scattered, weak clan with barely any capable fighters. Not long ago, you didn't even have fire. She corrected herself hastily upon remembering the bonfire they had built. Even with fire now, your tiny group will never survive the coming winter. Wasting such a valuable male on your struggling tribe is nothing short of reckless waste. Come back with us instead. The Fragrant Grass tribe has warm underground dens fit for winter shelter, stockpiled food stores, and dozens of tribe members to tend to your every need. Life with us will be 100 times better than scraping by and starving out here. Lin Xin silently scoffed at her words. Dozens of women waiting on him hand and foot? Did she think he was some breeding stallion? On top of that, he definitely had his own standards for company. The Clear Spring tribe consisted of cat, rabbit, canine, deer, and fox beast folk, all with pleasant, agreeable features. They were far more appealing than these rat-like women with shifty, untrustworthy faces. You're nothing more than thieves who steal from others. You have no right to judge us, Ollie said coldly. Gray Ear's smug smile froze on her face at the rebuke. The mouse beast woman holding the hides flushed bright red with anger. We didn't steal anything. We earned those goods through our own hard labor. Gray Ear's pleasant facade dropped completely, her expression turning icy cold. Enough empty talk. She fixed her gaze firmly on Lin Xin and tilted her chin upward. Male, come with us. Don't be foolish and turn down this offer. Ollie's tail flared out aggressively, her fingers tightening around her stone spear as she raised the sharp tip forward with a low warning growl. Try laying a hand on him and see what happens. And what will you do? Gray Ear bared her row of small, sharp fangs in a mocking grin. You want to fight? None of you are seasoned warriors. You have one frail human male and a mere child tagging along. She shot a contemptuous glance toward Sue and let out a mocking snort. The outcome of this fight is already obvious. Tension thickened the air to a breaking point. Lin Xin had remained quiet the entire time, sorting through all the known information in his mind methodically. The Fragrant Grass tribe, mouse beast women, fleeing with stolen meat and hides, intent on abducting him. They were the same group that had spied on the tribe 2 nights prior, chased off by Luoshua's arrow, an arrow that Lin Xin himself had crafted. He suddenly realized a critical detail. The bow and arrowhead had been loosely bound to the wooden shaft. Pulling the arrow free from tree bark would separate the head from the shaft cleanly. He had planned to fix this flaw later, never expecting the imperfect arrow to prove useful so soon. Seeing Lin Xin's prolonged silence, Gray Ear assumed he was intimidated and grew more arrogant. Male, make your choice. Come with me, and I'll guarantee you. Lin Xin stepped forward abruptly, cutting her sentence short. Ollie reached out to hold him back, yet he gently brushed her arm aside and walked to stand at the front of their group. Lin Xin advanced 3 paces forward. Gray Ear's eyes brightened, convinced the human had surrendered to her demands. Lin Xin faced the triumphant mouse beast woman with a calm, neutral expression, his voice low and steady. Leave this place right now. Gray Ear blinked in stunned confusion. Huh? Lin Xin continued, his words clear and unrushed. If you depart now, you will walk away unharmed. Gray Ear furrowed her brows to retort, but Lin Xin spoke before she could utter a single word. Do not forget what happened 2 nights ago. Remember how your comrade was wounded. Gray Ear's demeanor stiffened instantly, cold dread washing over her and shattering every greedy thought in her head. Lin Xin locked eyes directly with her. The bone fragment is still embedded in her wound, isn't it? Gray Ear's lips trembled, robbed of the ability to speak a single word. Her mind raced with panicked confusion. How could he possibly know this? The sneak attack 2 nights ago had taken place under pitch-black darkness. They had believed their actions went entirely unnoticed. Their group elder had been struck by the arrow, and the arrow had snapped off while being pulled free, leaving bone shards trapped inside the flesh. The wound had festered and swollen badly ever since, leaving their elder bedridden and immobile. This secret was known only to members of the Fragrant Grass tribe. Lin Xin watched her panicked reaction with quiet satisfaction. He knew the truth for a simple reason. He had made that arrow. He had noticed the flimsy binding when crafting it, knowing the head would detach if forcefully removed. What he had intended to fix later had unexpectedly become his first effective weapon against intruders. Lin Xin took another step closer, prompting Gray Ear to stumble backward instinctively. This land belongs to the Clear Spring tribe. Lin Xin's voice was not loud, yet every word carried weight, pounding heavily against the mouse beast woman's ears. Do you doubt I can inflict the same injury upon each of you as your wounded elder bears? Gray Ear's face drained of all color. She stared into Lin Xin's eyes, finding no savage ferocity typical of beast folk, only a chilling, unshakable calm, as if he were stating an unavoidable fact. Most terrifying of all, Gray Ear knew deep down that Lin Xin was telling the truth. Those wooden projectiles that flew through the air were eerie and unpredictable, able to strike from any hidden corner. Their elder remained bedridden with an infected, unreachable bone fragment lodged in her wound. The fragrant grass tribe had robbed countless neighboring clans and stirred widespread resentment across the territory. They were already struggling to sustain themselves and could not afford to provoke a tribe wielding deadly long-range weapons. From the corner of her eye, Gray Ear spotted other Clear Spring beast folk moving through the nearby woods, reinforcements close at hand within their tribe's territory. Her legs began to shake uncontrollably with fear. It was never fear, merely an instinct etched deep into their bones. When rats sense danger, their first instinct is never to fight, it is to flee. She gritted her teeth and flung her arm forward sharply. Retreat. The three rat-eared girls hefted their meat and clutched animal pelts, immediately darting into the woodland. They ran far swifter than when they had arrived, vanishing into the foliage in the blink of an eye. Lin Xin stood dumbfounded at their speed. Su stood beside him, jaw hanging wide open, before she stammered out a response. They actually really ran away. Ollie slowly lowered her stone spear, glanced sideways at Lin Xin, and let out a long, relieved breath. Truly cowardly as rats. They are rats after all. How bold could rats ever be? Chingu stood silently, staring at Lin Xin's back, her mind stuck on a single thought. This man had only arrived a few days prior. During the night ambush 2 evenings ago, darkness shrouded everything. He logically should have seen nothing. Yet he had pieced together every scattered scrap of information, and with nothing more than a few casual words, completely crumbled their mental defenses. Chingu found herself studying him with renewed curiosity. Ollie favorability plus 3 Chingu favorability plus 2 Su favorability plus 2 total favorability. 88 points, only 2 more points were needed to unlock an attribute point. The rat-eared figures had already vanished into the dense forest. The branches they had crashed through continued to shed leaves in a rustling cascade, like a sparse rain of foliage. Su remained rooted to the spot, stunned speechless. They just left just like that. Ollie set down her stone spear at last, exhaling the tension she had held trapped in her chest for ages. Chingu said nothing, though her fingers gradually loosened their white-knuckled grip on the spear shaft. Deep indentations marked the wooden surface, evidence of the brutal force she had been wielding moments earlier. Lin Xin inspected the fishing lines and shrimp traps discarded on the ground. These rugged handcrafted items could withstand minor impacts without breaking easily. Su had still not processed what had just unfolded. What had seemed resolved with mere dialogue had teetered on lethal peril every step of the way. Chingu could barely hold her own against Gray Ear in combat. Ollie possessed little talent for close-quarters fighting. As for Su, she had been nothing more than a bystander, wide-eyed and frozen the entire time. Had open combat erupted, Lin Xin would likely have been the sole survivor among their group. Still, his lean frame stood no chance of overpowering 3 seasoned Rat Clan hunters in a brute force clash. That was never his plan. He relied on wits, not raw strength. Ollie murmured quietly, "I should not have let you step forward to negotiate." Lin Xin did not lift his gaze from his work. "If I had not stepped up, were you planning to fight them head-on?" Ollie pouted faintly. "We would not have stood a chance, truth be told." Chingu spoke next, her voice still taut with lingering dread. "I could trade blows endlessly with Gray Ear, but the other two." No further explanation was needed. Everyone understood the grim reality. Lin Xin rinsed his hands in the river current. There is no need to risk our lives when words can settle a conflict. Besides, he paused, a faint grin tugging at his lips. They are rats. Rats are never brave by nature. Chingu looked up toward him, parted her lips as if to speak, then let out a soft sigh instead. Her thoughts swirled endlessly. He had fashioned functional bows and arrows the day he arrived, and now, only 3 days later, He had scared off the rat-eared raiders using nothing but his words. She dared not imagine how the confrontation would have unfolded without his intervention. Hey, Sue's pointed ears twitched abruptly as an idea popped into her head. Your bow and arrow, did it really wound their clan elder that badly? Lin Qin knew she was referring to the bone fragment embedded within the rat leader's flesh. Absolutely. He shook the water from his hands and rose to his feet. Once a bone arrowhead pierces flesh, pulling the shaft out forcefully snaps the head off inside the wound. They lacked this knowledge, and their desperate yanking left fragments lodged deep in her body. Sue hurried closer, eyes blown wide with concern. Will she die from that injury? It depends entirely on luck, Lin Qin answered honestly. With good fortune, her body might gradually expel the bone shards naturally. If the wound festers and becomes infected, her odds will be slim. Ali and Chingu exchanged a knowing glance. Both reached the same conclusion simultaneously. They needed to craft many more bows and arrows back at the tribe. These projectile weapons were far more effective than crude stone spears. The tense atmosphere had barely eased when splashing footsteps echoed from the riverbank ahead. Every head snapped toward the sound. On the shallow shoal across the water, a herd of massive beasts lowered their heads to drink from the current. Lin Qin narrowed his eyes, his pupils constricting sharply. Giant stag deer. These creatures were towering in stature. Their shoulder height measured no less than 1.5 meters, with bodies stretching over 2 meters from head to haunch. Their massive branching antlers resembled small trees, their imposing presence commanding instant wariness. Oblivious to the observers on the opposite bank, the stags continued drinking greedily. Sue's eyes lit up instantly, blazing like two bright lanterns. Deer. Enormous deer, she whispered urgently, unable to contain her mounting excitement. They are bigger than any wild boar we have hunted in the mountains. Lin Qin internally scoffed mentally. Wild boars were trivial prey compared to these stags. I'm going to catch one. Sue clenched her small fists, cheeks flushed bright red with determined longing. If I drag one of these giants back to the tribe, I'll officially become a full hunter. Ali shot her a bland, dismissive look and doused her enthusiasm without mercy. You will not even be able to draw near them. Giant stags possess exceptional senses, Chingu added, her tone weighted with lessons learned from countless failed hunts. Their hearing surpasses ours, and their sense of smell is keener than any hound's. They can detect our scent from dozens of paces away. Lin Qin glanced at the canine ears perched atop Sue's head, silently musing if Chingu had just delivered an unintentional jab. Sue pouted so fiercely her lips could have held a small gourd, stubborn resolve burning bright in her expression. I can sneak up on them quietly. Her sentence was cut short by a soft rustle of shifting leaves. Though the sound was faint, the sharp-eared stags picked it up immediately. The drinking herd snapped their heads upward, ears rigidly erect, their amber eyes locking straight onto the riverbank where the group hid. The air turned thick and heavy, frozen with tension. Lin Qin held his breath entirely. The stag stared them down for barely 2 seconds before pushing off the riverbank with its powerful hind legs and bolting away in a blur of motion. Its speed rivaled the frantic flight of the rat-eared girls earlier. Its streamlined, muscular frame unleashed explosive power, hooves kicking up sprays of river water as it vanished into the thick woodland, not a single strand of its tail remaining visible. Sue stood frozen, mouth hanging open in a perfect O shape, this time from pure frustration. They got away. She stamped her foot hard on the ground, her tail drooping limply at her back, her spirit crushed like frost-bitten greens. Ollie stared blankly at her. I warned you capture was impossible. I never said I would strike right this second. Sue whirled toward Lin Qin, hope shining vividly in her gaze. Lin Qin will definitely have a way to catch them. Lin Qin inwardly groaned. Why was he always the first person everyone turned to for solutions? Still, he could not deny how difficult hunting giant stags truly was. Blinding speed, hypervigilance, and unmatched sight, hearing and scent made them formidable quarry. In his old world, taking down such game would require a firearm. With nothing but stone spears and primitive bows, the challenge was monumental. Yet it was not entirely unachievable. Traps, coordinated group hunts, precision arrow shots, he could test each method one by one. He reached out and gently ruffled the top of Sue's head. We can work out a plan to hunt these stags later. Sue's gloomy expression vanished instantly, her eyes sparkling once more. Really, truly, but not today. Sue nodded vigorously, fists clenched tight, with renewed anticipation shining in her eyes. Chingu stood a short distance behind them, watching Lin Qin's retreating figure with a faint, involuntary smile tugging at her mouth. This man was incredibly bold to set his sights on such elusive giant stags. These deer were notoriously hard to hunt. Luoshiwe, the tribe's most skilled hunter, had once chased one for 2 full days before wearing it down enough to make a kill. She traced the trampled hoof prints along the shoreline, then looked back toward Lin Xin. Perhaps he really could devise a viable hunting strategy. Su favorability +1. Lin Xin caught sight of the system notification, the corners of his mouth lifting subtly. Total favorability had climbed to 89. He was so close to his goal. He picked up his fishing line and cast the lure back into the river. The float bobbed gently across the water's surface, ripples spreading outward in soft concentric circles. Let us focus on fishing for now. We can discuss other matters once we return to camp. Lin Xin fixed his gaze steadily on the water's surface. 2 thoughts occupied his mind. First, he needed to craft many more bows and arrows. Second, he had to carefully design a method to hunt the giant stags. In that instant, the fishing float plummeted sharply underwater. Whoa, the fish are biting this aggressively. The lure barely hit the surface and something struck it already. His first catch was a small fish. Lin Xin readjusted his float setup. Larger fish dwelled along the riverbed and required bottom fishing tactics. Though this backwater eddy appeared modest in size, its depth reached 6 full meters. He relocated to a wider stretch of the river where the current flowed at a calm, steady pace, with a large flat boulder along the bank serving as a comfortable seat. Chingu knelt nearby, observing the small fish flopping weakly on the ground, its tail swiping across the dirt. Can this contraption truly land large fish? Wait and see. Lin Xin wedged his wooden fishing pole into a crack in the boulder. Fishing is as much about luck as skill. He retrieved his shrimp traps, stuffed chunks of raw pork trimmings into the central bait compartment, then slowly lowered the cage into the water amid thick aquatic vegetation, securing the anchor rope to a gnarled willow tree growing crookedly along the bank. That is all set. He brushed dirt from his palms. We can collect the traps when we are ready to leave. Ollie had watched his entire process with a neutral expression, finally offering a dry remark. You are quite adept at finding shortcuts to lessen your workload. Lin Xin cleared his throat awkwardly. This is called optimized resource management and intelligent wilderness survival. You would not understand the logic behind it. A short distance away, Chingu and Su had begun gathering wild berries amid the riverbank shrubbery. Thick, low bushes carpeted this stretch of land beside the water, heavy with clusters of bright red and purple wild fruit. Ever since tasting berries cooked with meat, the beast-eared girls had grown fond of the flavor, planning to harvest a large stockpile this time around. Su stuffed berries into her mouth as she picked them, her cheeks bulging like a hamster storing food. Spit those berries out immediately, Chingu said without turning her head, her ears twisting sharply toward the younger girl. Su froze mid-motion, slowly chewing the fruit in her mouth before swallowing it whole. Chingu heaved a weary sigh, choosing not to scold her further. Ollie opted out of berry gathering, lingering by the riverbank. The fox-eared girl rested her chin in her palm, staring blankly at Lin Xin with obvious curiosity. She could not fathom how this strange floating device was meant to catch fish. Lin Xin's legs had grown numb from sitting for so long, so he picked up a small stone to twist between his fingers to pass the time. Ollie watched his idle action with a faint twitch of her lips. Are you certain this will work? Fishing is meant to calm the spirit and cultivate patience, Lin Xin replied with unwavering composure. Ollie continued to stare at him with a blank, skeptical expression. Lin Xin cast his line into the river once again. More than 10 minutes passed. The float twitched 3 separate times. 2 pulls brought up only tiny fish, and the third yielded nothing but stripped bait. Multiple members of the tribe relied on their daily catches for sustenance, and these minuscule fish would never be enough to feed everyone. He knew these ancient river fish were far fiercer than the overfished, wary specimens found in modern waterways. They fought hard once hooked, diving straight toward deeper water when caught. A single large catch would provide a substantial amount of nourishing meat for the group. Mid-thought, the fishing float dove sharply downward once more. This tug was vastly different from the earlier minor movements. The entire float vanished beneath the river's surface in an instant. The tip of the wooden pole bent into a taut, perfect arch. The fishing line vibrated with a high, shrill hum beneath the water, identical to the resonant thrumming of a fully drawn bowstring. Lin Xin's muscles tensed with alarm. A massive fish had taken the bait. He snatched the pole firmly with both hands. The rod tip pulled so far down it nearly brushed the water's surface. An immense force surged from the water, yanking him forward and making him stumble half a step toward the river edge. The fishing line stretched taut to its limit, its high-pitched whine growing louder by the second, threatening to snap apart at any moment. Please hold together. Lin Qin gritted his teeth, anxiety coiling in his chest. This line was woven from rough tree bark, and he had no absolute certainty regarding its tensile strength. A snapped line would mean losing the catch entirely. He dared not pull back with brute force, instead guiding the pole left and right to wear the fish out, silently pleading for the crude cord to endure the strain. Chingu stood upright, her tail stiffening as her eyes locked intently on the churning river surface. Ollie stared in shock at the enormous shape surging beneath the water. Su called out from the berry patch. "Did you hook another fish?" A massive splash erupted across the river surface, a dark, bluish-black fish tail, slamming above the water and sending plumes of spray flying in every direction. That tail alone spanned the width of an adult palm. Lin Qin swallowed hard, silently praying his handmade hook and line would withstand the struggle. The giant fish dove downward toward the river depths with relentless force, the strained line emitting mournful vibrations as if ready to tear apart. Lin Qin gripped the wooden pole with all his strength, the timber curving into a frightening arc that looked liable to splinter at any second. This fish has to weigh no less than 20 jin, Lin Qin thought, a mix of excitement and anxiety washing over him. He worried the bark cord would fail under the load, yet the prospect of hauling a 20 jin fish back to the tribe filled him with anticipation. Such a large catch would surely raise everyone's favorability toward him further. Bringing such a massive fish to camp would also motivate the other beast-eared tribesfolk to learn fishing techniques. A group fishing together would yield far greater supplies than his solo efforts. The giant fish continued thrashing and pulling against the line with unrelenting power. Lin Qin persisted in wearing it down, matching its lateral movements with gentle adjustments of the pole. When the fish darted left, he guided the pole leftward. When it surged right, he shifted his weight to follow its path. His feet slipped repeatedly on the loose riverbank gravel as the fish dragged his body back and forth across the shore. "Are you managing?" Chingu shouted from behind him, her voice sharp with worry. "No time for questions. Grab the stone spear. Stab it once it drifts into shallow water." Lin Qin forced the words out through clenched teeth. He had not crafted a landing net, so spearing the large fish directly was the most practical solution. The meat would be usable regardless of whether the fish perished instantly. Ollie reacted faster than the others. She seized the stone spear they had fashioned days prior, tightening her grip as her eyes and ears locked onto the fish's position beneath the waves. The fish finally exhausted a portion of its stamina, allowing Lin Qin to tow it into the shallower waters near shore. Dark dorsal scales broke the river's surface, revealing a fish over a meter in length with broad, glossy plating unlike any freshwater species Lin Qin recognized from his old world. Now, Ollie sprinted forward along the bank, lifting the spear high and driving the sharp stone tip straight into the thickest section of the fish's torso. A dull, wet squelch echoed as the spearhead pierced clean through the fish's body. The fish lashed its tail violently, drenching Ollie from head to toe with river spray, yet she bore down firmly on the spear shaft without budging an inch. Lin Qin jammed the fishing pole into a rock crevice and lunged forward to assist her. Working together, they hauled the colossal fish onto the muddy riverbank with great effort. The fish flopped wildly on dry land, its gills opening and closing rapidly as its large scales shimmered with a bluish-gold sheen beneath the sunlight. Chingu stepped forward and gasped in astonishment. "This creature's body is thicker than my thigh." Su abandoned berry picking entirely and raced over, circling the massive fish with unrestrained wonder. "It's enormous. Absolutely huge." Lin Qin sank onto the ground, gasping heavily for breath, a wide grin spreading across his face as he stared at the 20 gene catch. "We got it." Ollie pulled the spear free from the fish's body, rinsing the blood-stained tip in the river before glancing meaningfully toward Lin Qin. "I will admit, those spears we crafted together are far more useful than I expected." Naturally, Lin Qin took the spear and examined its construction closely. The stone head is sharpened properly and bound securely to the shaft. "We should forge more spears going forward, ideal for spearing fish and hunting wild game alike." Ollie favorability +2, Chingu favorability +2, Su favorability +2. A faint smile crossed Lin Qin's face upon reading the system alert. His assumption had proven correct. Demonstrating tangible achievements and practical value to the beast-eared girls was the simplest way to raise their favor toward him. Total favorability has reached 94 points. 1 free attribute point awarded. He set aside the newly acquired attribute point for later allocation, threading sturdy vine through the fish's gills to secure it for transport. "I will cast the line again." Lin Qin rebaited his hook and tossed the lure back into the river water. Barely a minute passed before the float dove downward violently once more. The pole bent sharply under the strain. Though the force was weaker than the previous catch, it still required careful handling. Now experienced with the process, Lin Qin calmly tired out the fish before reeling it toward the shore. Ollie drove her spear home cleanly in one fluid motion. His second catch weighed roughly 13 jin, another substantial fish. Looks like we stumbled straight into a dense school of fish today, Lin Qin murmured happily as he set the second catch beside the first. He rebaited his hook once more, planning to land one final fish before packing up to leave. The lure had barely settled on the water's surface when the float was ripped away entirely, yanked beneath the current in a single sharp jerk. Lin Qin lifted the pole instinctively, nearly being dragged bodily into the river by the sudden force.